Good evening and welcome to the August 13th, 2024 Lawrence City Commission meeting. I'd like to make sure that we have the rules of the meeting discussed beforehand. So Sherry, can you do so?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. To minimize distractions during the meeting, please silence your cell phones. If you are attending virtually, please ensure you are muted and your video is off when you are not actively participating in the meeting. The city reserves the right to turn videos off or mute participants. When the when the vice mayor calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Virtual participants should use the raise hand function to indicate they wish to speak. Please leave your virtual hand raised until you are called on. The primary format for accessing or participating in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. If you have any trouble, the meeting can be viewed on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Please state your name and zip code before speaking, and all comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. All right, the first item on the agenda is item A. That is to approve the agenda as written. Do I have a motion for that?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve the agenda is written by Commissioner Finkeldye, second by Commissioner Sellers. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Is my microphone okay or no?
It's good now.
Okay, the next item is the consent agenda, and the items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion and approved by one motion. Members of the governing body may remove items for separate discussion if desired. Members of the public may remove items identified as quasi-judicial for separate discussion if desired. Members of the public will be limited to 3 minutes per comments.
I would like to have something removed.
Yes, ma'am.
Item B5. Oh, we've deferred that. It's been deferred.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
it was a last minute deferral. Okay, so that one's off. Anything else?
You ready for a motion?
Please, may I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was one quasi-judicial item, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there
So
is.
we need to make sure there's not a member of the public that wants to.
Okay, let me look
that.
right here. Quasi-judicial item A, which is B7.
Mhm.
Yes.
Do we need to reveal any communications we've had outside this or no?
Only if it's
Only
pulled.
pulled.
Okay.
So we'll just need to open it to those in the room and then online.
Got it.
On.
Are there any public comment on item B7A? How about on the screen?
No, there is not.
All right, very good. I'll bring it back to the commission.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, approval for the motion is presented by Commissioner Finkeldye, seconded by Commissioner Sellers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Was opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
For the record, yours, Commissioner Sellers, seconded by Commissioner Fink.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I've got it in the
You
minute.
got it.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Okay, the next item is the regular agenda items. Item D is to consider approving a concept for the Outdoor Aquatic Center. And we have some folks here to present to us, and the action is to approve a concept for the aquatic center and a major renovation.
Good evening, Commissioners, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Luis Ruiz, Department of Parks, Recreation, Art, and Culture. As he's pulling this up, we will be tag teaming today, so I'll introduce some of our speakers. We do have our SFS Architecture, who's helped in some of the design concepts as we're moving through this process. We have Water's Edge, an engineering firm who's also helped with some of the price costing and some of the actual structural analysis that have been done. We have Borreo here also. They have done public engagement on our behalf. And then we'll also have Jake here to close out with the next steps of isn't that coming up?
Yeah. Hey, Kurt, we're having a little trouble getting this to share. Is there something going on?
I'm looking to.
It looks a little dark, Jay.
Right. We can always just slide through the PDF on the agenda if need be.
Yeah, I mean, you're just using the PowerPoint, right?
I was trying to. But we'll
And it looks like everything's
do it
good
this
on
way.
this end.
we'll just have to,
Okay.
we'll just have to scroll through.
All right, so just to quickly go over our agenda for our presentation today. Again, we'll talk a little bit about the community engagement that we've done a little bit prior to the last meeting we had with you, and as well as the public engagement that we have done since that time. We will present some the preferred option that has come up through that public engagement, as well as some upgraded options, as well as the next steps. And then we'll close out with some question and answers as is typical. Okay, so I would like to introduce Travis Pendleton with Vireo.
Good evening. My name is Travis Pendleton. I'm a city planner with Vireo. My role in this project as subconsultant was to manage community engagement, working with city staff, the community. So the last time we chatted with you all, we were talking about the first phase of engagement. Our phases of engagement were in total 3. They each build upon each other. So the first one, we were really asking for a variety of comments about spaces and features and so on that people wanted to see in the renovated pool. As we went into the second phase of engagement, that was all about looking at improvement concepts based on all the feedback that we had gotten, and as well as the conditions assessment. What you see on screen right now are the 4 improvement concepts that we shared at that time. I'm sure they're familiar to you. We had the big leisure, big river, big variety, and destination splash. The way that we gathered feedback on these improvement concepts was through a public meeting, through a opinion survey, which is where we had most of our responses. And in fact, the people that came to the public meeting, the majority of them had already commented online. And they were mostly Lawrence residents and people in a certain age range in their 30s and 40s. I go to the next slide just by clicking. Will that work? There we go. So in terms of what we heard about those concepts, everything sort of coalesced around big variety. People wanted to be able to do as many things as they could and make sure that the renovation project accommodated people of all different age groups, but also the activities that they wanted to do and the abilities that they would have. So what you see on screen are the top 6 types of features that people wanted to see with big variety. You see lazy river and shallow leisure as number 1, followed by shade, a moderate splash pad, new water slides, drop slides, and, lap lanes. This was preferred by almost 1 in 2 out of the people who participated online. Moving from the second phase into the third, it was all about the preferred concept and what that had in it, based off all the feedback in terms of what people thought were really important, things that people thought were really important to include. With this, we had our greatest response again online. Again, lots of the people who came to the public meeting had already participated online. So by the time the online survey had closed, we had 703 respondents. Again, same age group as we have seen participate in the process overall in terms of online. Also, when we polled people as part of the survey about how you wanted to participate, how to share information with you, the email marketing, social media, posting on the project webpage was what was most important to people, more so than coming to meetings. In terms of the preferred concept, these were the 6 things or features that people wanted to see. You see that in the left box: the lazy river, shade and lounge area, zero depth area, shallow leisure pool, feature slide, and then the 6th. Now, we know that this project has a budget associated with it. And so when we were sharing the concepts, we had the budget in mind, but we also knew that we should ask about, well, what if the budget were to increase? What would you like to see? That will help us refine concepts. So getting answers to what do you like? And then if you could have more, what would that be? Would help us refine the concept. So you see the top 4 responses there. a longer lazy river, additional shade, expanded shallow area, and then expanded zero depth. One of the things that we heard a lot overall is that people wanted to have more water. They really wanted shade, really wanted a variety of activities. So also, when we talked to you all before, you wanted to be sure that we talked to certain groups, for example, accessibility, and talk to your ADA coordinator. I know that Evan may be online right now and maybe can chime into this, but we had focus group conversations. So we met with not only Independence Incorporated, but we also talked with Haskell Indian Nations University. We talked to the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP Lawrence, Kansas chapter. And we talked to the swim clubs and camps. Now, I just went from the bottom of the list up. I'm going to go back down the other way. So when it came to talking to the swim clubs and the teams, one of the things that we heard time and time again is that people wanted to have 50-meter lane swimming, and that lap swimming is really important. That's important from a leisure perspective, from a competitive perspective, and so on. So one of the things that they wanted to be able to see is how do we coordinate that potentially from an operations standpoint, which is something that I know you'll hear about later. What does that look like and how can we accommodate that? Having a conversation with Haskell Indian Nations University was super helpful because they have an indoor pool and they're interested in coordinating between the city and them for access to that pool, because it's possible that it's not just students that use that, community members can be able to use that area, and it's 50 meters. When we talked to the NAACP, that was a really powerful conversation. It was powerful because they were gracious enough to share the trauma of what aquatic access has been for people of color in this city over the years. And so now that things have changed, laws have changed, we're in where we are right now in 2024. One of the things that they talked about was the cost of a pool. And could we do something about the cost, maybe for people who have lower incomes? The cost of the pool, access to the pool, using the pool is something that we had heard elsewhere too. But with that NAACP context, it has a deeper meaning. With Haskell, again, it was the coordination opportunities, and not just for 50-meter lap swimming, but for other activities. So their students like being on campus. It feels homey and is comfortable for them. But it would be great for them to come out of campus and see what else is available in town. And so there may be opportunities they felt for activities that the city and they both host, and maybe that some of those are held at the outdoor pool. And Independence Incorporated had really great comments about accessibility, from the chairlifts that are there, to the boards, to how the lazy river works, to what's included in the bathrooms or in the restrooms in the bathhouse, the color coding of that, how to do navigation, not just through signs, but through things that are more tactile, that help people of all different ranges of ability. And with that, I want to know if Evan is on, if you want to add anything to that, particularly from the accessibility component. I don't see a hand up or anything. Does anyone see anything there?
He did just join.
He's just joined.
So just.
Evan, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry.
It's okay. So I just went through some of what we heard from the focus group conversations, and I touched a little bit at a high level on the accessibility comments. Do you want to elaborate on some of the things that we were talking about in that conversation, and maybe what you've heard since?
Yeah, so some of the focus group was really focused on some different accessibility options, whether it be entrances into the pool or out of the pool, or kind of what may work best for different mobility issues. So we looked at some different options, whether it be sloped entrance versus chairlift, versus transfer stairs, a combination of all or above. So a lot of really good kind of structural accessibility recommendations, but I think some of the things that we took out of there were also some operational things that we could implement even after some of the structural ADA stuff was met, such as different types of flotation devices that would work for kind of a variety of disabilities, for things like a lazy river, some wayfinding signage for kind of ease of access or around kind of the facility. So Some of those things were probably the most beneficial that we took out of those discussions. And I think a lot of them we can implement and do a kind of a variety of different options. And a lot of it will depend on kind of what overall design is selected, because some of the ADA will depend on kind of linear square feet of whatever pool you're working with. So.
Thank you, Evan. I appreciate that. And so with that, I'm going to pass this to Jeff from Water's Edge, and he's going to get into the preferred concept and talk about refining and so on.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners, Vice Mayor. My name is Jeff Bartley. I'm an engineer who plans and designs aquatic centers for communities such as yours. I'm going to share with you details of the concept that we are bringing forward, along with a couple other options or versions, derivations of that. Starting first with the concept plan. This is the preferred concept plan, taking the input that we receive from the public through the meetings and through the surveys, bringing forward the interest or the desires to have kind of a balanced assortment of activities and areas for families and community members for swimming, whether it's lap swimming, competition swimming, leisure, lazy river, aquatic therapy programs, camps. We met with some of your day camps. So we're taking all of these specific interests and folding it into the concept, all working or staying focused on the budget for this project. So this is the preferred plan that takes in that input and meets the budget for the project. So this concept, again, and I'll go back to what we discussed before. We are in this project, we are saving a portion of the existing pool, the deeper end of the pool, the diving, the lap, some of the lap area, at least on the south side of that. And we are removing the worst portions of the facility. That's the shallow part of the pool. Those are the areas that we found are really deteriorating badly and are going to need a lot of expense. And at some point, some areas can't really be salvaged, but need to be reconstructed entirely, especially up in the zero depth portion of the existing pool. But as you can see, the new facility is overlaid on the footprint showing the dash line where the existing pool is. So we're saving portions of the existing pool, the lap lanes, converting those lanes from 50 meters to 25 meters. Those lanes running north-south. And we didn't do that lightly. We did that in discussion with staff. As you're aware, the city owns and operates two 50-meter facilities. One is the indoor pool, but in recent years, the indoor pool has not been operated as a 50-meter pool. So a lot of the discussion has been in changing the operation so that the indoor pool would be configured during the day, each day, so there are 50-meter lanes available for use, which are not currently being operated that way. The only 50-meter lanes being operated right now are the outdoor lanes during the summer months. So we are converting those to 25-meter lanes. They would be used for those programs in the morning, and then the lane ropes would be removed. So this would be an open swim area for families and kids throughout the afternoon. We're adding this leisure pool, which starts at zero depth entry. So gradually slopes off the deck down to deeper water to about 3 feet, 3 to 3.5 foot deep that would be on the west side, where it picks up this lazy river current channel, which has been a real popular feature that the community has asked for. Along with that, we have some other areas. We have this sun shelf on this side where we can place chase lounges and you can sit in 6-inch deep water. And then we're adding a splash pad on the north side of the facility, and that splash pad can be operated or fenced such that it extends the season. So you can use that much longer during the season than the outdoor pool. And you would not require lifeguard staffs to be on hand at the time for it to be open. We are saving the plunge pool also on the south end. And the slides are pretty old, so we're replacing one of those slides with this with a single slide in this plan. So all in all, we are We're modifying it such that we have about 7,600 square foot for lap pool, and then we have 4,000 change for leisure pool and saving the plunge pool. We're adding all these features, but we do note that this plan, while it's within budget, provides 3,000 square foot less water recreation area than you have today. Now, those areas are the areas that we're providing more activated with features and things than the current pool, but it is slightly less area than the current footprint. There is the bird's eye view of your existing pool. Again, with the fan-shaped zero depth entry, shallow water, extending down the lap lanes in the north-south direction, the deep water, and the plunge pool that we're saving. Here is a bird perspective of what the preferred plan would look like. Again, altering the existing lap pool and preserving the diving with a significant amount of repair in that area. And then the leisure pool in this location pointed towards the bathhouse, reconfiguring it so zero depth entry in the shallow areas is more connected with the bathhouse and the bathrooms especially for families with small ones. And then the splash pad on the north end. Another perspective of it, this is overlooking the area that's entirely new, which is the leisure pool area with the zero depth entry on this space, ramping down to the lazy river on the backside. So how it fits in the budget, this is a quick breakdown of that. Of your $6.1 million project budget, almost $4.4 million of that's being spent on renovating and preserving portions of the pool, replacing the really bad parts and providing the new pool areas. So that's about $4.4 million of the budget. There's $560,000 allocated towards improvements to rejuvenate the bathhouse, freshen it up, fix some of the issues there. And then outside of that, so that's the construction cost that would go to building it. And then there are project costs outside of the construction contract. So throughout the process that we had, questions, since we are 3,000 square foot less than the current pool. And we had asked, as Travis mentioned, in the public input process, we asked the community, what would they like to see in that concept plan? Well, how would they see things different? What would they include? And we got some of those responses. People would like to see a larger leisure pool, and they'd like a longer lazy river. But in this scenario, we added larger leisure pool, widened that space to add about 500 square foot of leisure pool. We expanded the splash pad slightly. And then we added shade. Shade was one of the items that most people were asking for, as much of that as possible. So we added shade, and then we added a second water slide to it. So there would be 2 slides in the plunge pool. And in addition to that, we added, in addition to the methods of ADA entry that we had in preferred in the first concept, we added a ramped entry method into the lap pool in this option. So it expands the area, makes up the difference a little bit, adds about 1,500 square foot of water. So it cuts the difference in half between the first concept and the existing water surface area. But it does add budget to it. This is the bird's eye view of what that would look like. Primarily, you see that in a larger, wider leisure pool. And then you see the second slide, the ramped entry, larger splash pad. That does add cost beyond what the current budget is. And we're projecting that to add roughly $1.2 million to the project to take it to approximate $7.3 million project budget. So then the question was also asked, if the existing pool is 19,000 square foot, what would a scenario look like if we did these improvements we were talking about and expanded the water recreation area to get to 19,000 square foot? This is a plan for that. And this plan largely expands the lazy river, which was the number one item that people asked for to improve the current concept plan that we had. They asked for a longer lazy river, so we've added that to the equation. We've added more shade again. Again, it has the second water slide, has the ramp in there, and then the expanded splash pad. And that increases the water recreation area back to the original 19,000 square foot of water. There's again, bird's eye view and a rendering, what that would look like. And again, the biggest difference is in this concept is a much longer lazy river. And that again expands the budget again slightly beyond the current one. And we project that to be roughly a $2.4 million add to the current budget, making it about $8.5 million project budget as an option. So those are the details on the concept plan. I'll hand it back to Jake to talk about next steps.
Thank you, Luis and Travis and Jeff. I'm Jake Baldwin, Engineering Program Manager with Municipal Services and Operations, and I'm going to wrap up the presentation this evening with these next couple of slides. First being, we'll talk about our next steps. So we're here, of course, tonight looking for approval of a concept. Once we've got that, we turn around and come back to City Commission about as soon as we could with a design contract. Because once we've got that done, we can roll into design, hoping to meet completion date of the design documents in April 2025. Once we've got that, we'll be able to submit the necessary permits and bid the project. And the goal of that whole process will be to get to construction in mid-summer 2025, and then to a grand opening in the summer of 2026. And then finally, we've got kind of a summary here of the concepts that we discussed in detail a few moments ago. Highlights being the preferred concept. That's our concept that is within the budget. However, it is about 3,000 square feet of less aquatic space than what the existing facility is. After that, we've got our preferred concept that expands the leisure area. There's going to be an increase in the price of that of approximately $1.2 million. And it's going to make up about half of the aquatic space that we're short on in the preferred concept versus the existing facility. And then the final preferred concept expands the lazy river and the leisure areas. It's an increase of about $2.4 million. It does get us back to the aquatic space that we've got with the existing facility. And last thing I would note is just these concepts, again, were generated through the feedback we received through the community engagement process. And we'd be happy to answer any questions now about that process or these concepts. Thank you.
Commissioners?
Yeah, a few questions. Jake, while you're up there, just real quick, construction starts in midsummer 25. Question is, when is midsummer? Does that cut out swimming season short, or is midsummer August or September? What are you thinking there?
I don't think we know that for certain. I think the idea is that there's the potential to cut the swimming season short, and these guys can jump in here if I say anything incorrect. But really, once we get in design, we'll flesh out the schedule and how much time we need to get to construction documents, and then that will kind of inform when we can begin construction. I think there is or at least you can expand on that any?
Sure. The desire is to not cut out either summer, 25 or 26, having the early summer in 25 while we go through the construction documents, and have it completed at some point before summer 2026. And talking to the engineer, if we meet a lot of these timelines on the early side, my hope is to have it open by the time the World Cup is hopefully hitting Lawrence, and we won't have a construction project, rather a facility that's open to any visitors at that time. There's no guarantee to that, but worst case scenario, our current planning would have it open for the second half of summer in 2026. So we don't have a whole year without being able to use the new pool.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about, we've heard from some of the swim users, the lap users, about the 25, 50. I heard a little discussion about Haskell and about using the indoor pool. Can you talk a little bit more about
Sure.
using those facilities for 50
Sure.
meters?
So I would say that shortly after I got here, we had a public meeting. And in there was some concern about, at the time, it was a 25-yard pool. So we had some swimmers, some lap swimmers with concern. Why are you doing 25? What we heard at that time is, would you consider 25 meters? So that was changed from the initial concept of 25 yards to 25 meters. It made sense. So following that, we had meetings with Ad Astra, and you saw the list of those swim teams. Now, these are swim teams. These aren't necessarily lap swimmers, but the idea that they want to pursue was the 50-yard option. And we have spoken to our engineers. The 50-meter option adds a lot of money to this budget. So we likely wouldn't even fall in budget if we were to replace with the same. Now, that hasn't been estimated out thoroughly, but there is a cost to rebuilding another 50-meter in the place of the current 50-meter. Some of the operational changes that we have committed to throughout the conversation is we have an indoor 50-meter pool that has, since COVID, really not functioned as that. So operationally, programmatically, we have had discussions already. We haven't gone down into the details as to what it looks like, is providing that 50-yard option, a 50-meter option on a year-round basis. Doing that for the outdoor for a 2-month period of time and foregoing all the other features that we have heard were important didn't seem necessarily like a balanced decision. Further, we do have we maintain eight lanes of 25-meter swimming, which for exercise purposes, we would continue to have the hours in the morning, the hours in the afternoon, same type of programming we have now. The only thing is that 50 meters, if somebody would need to do 50 meters either for competitive or for fitness, that would be replaced with the indoor pool hours, operational changes that we would make in 2020, between 2025 and 2026, when this pool is out of commission. So we presented it early. We got feedback. Aside from the pool's smaller, the other thing is 25 yards. That doesn't make sense. So that was an easy enough modification that maintained the budget. But we do have a plan to work around that. Now, to answer the question about Haskell, yes, we did meet with them, and they have an underutilized pool. We haven't gone too far down the conversation, but they're certainly interested in the city helping with staffing, whether it's, they're paying for some staff because it's high demand for lifeguards, believe it or not, in the summer. So how do they best utilize that facility that is really underutilized right now? So there is an opportunity for further conversations with them if there's a need for additional programming space, whether it be 50-meter or any other programs that we feel fit in the community. So yeah, we've considered this, and we will address the change from the 50-meter to the 25-meter with other operational changes, and are sensitive to that. So we're well aware that was a program that is appreciated by the community in the mornings and in the evenings.
Thank you. Last question, I guess. I don't know who would answer this, but you're looking at, assuming we want to stay within budget, it would seem to me like the second slide and the shade, those things could be added later. It would just be the pool.
Yeah, if we structurally set them that way, yes. But I'm not a structural engineer, or an engineer, but I believe that is an option. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As well as shade and other things that are not the brick and mortar portions that are going to make the structural changes that we need to make.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So Lisa, I want to make sure I hear correctly with the possibility of, I'm going to pull aside for Haskell, what we currently have right now indoor wise, do we feel like it's underutilized as it relates to recruiting organizations for competitive swimming, swim meets, things of that nature? Is it just underutilized? Or are we just not promoting ourselves for that? Because I know some of the feedback I'm getting is that, you know, going to the 25 meter could impact our ability to persuade meets to have their competitions.
Yeah. We spoke about this earlier today, and the reality is that once that indoor pool opened, there were no meets out in the 50-meter outdoor pool. So there's not a level of demand that we're not meeting either with the indoor pool or outdoor pool as far as meets are going. So the indoor pool took that place of any meets or anything needing the 50 meters. It never really happened in the outdoor pool once that indoor pool was built. So again, programming, even the way we set our lanes, that is really a programmatic and an operational change that we can and have already started conversations about what does this look like if we now are using this as a 100-meter pool, a 50-meter pool, whether it's for swim meets or for lap swim. And those conversations hadn't really come up until now. So we're fervently going and chasing what that will look like at that time to make sure that we can accommodate all the varying needs of the community.
And then this might be more of a question for Jake. I know in the last presentation, we went over the existing conditions and the assessment of that. From an asset management perspective, do we have a swimming pool that's on the end of its life? It's within 3 years, 5 years of its end of life. Where are we at with our pool?
I may have jump up to answer that question. I think the condition assessment kind of spoke that different pieces of the facility had more life than others.
Yes, thank you. I think we talked about this earlier in one of the previous meetings, but part of this process was an assessment on your existing pool.
Mhm.
And when we visually reviewed it, we had concerns about cracking that we were seeing in the structure. And then we followed that with cores that were taken through the structure. So what we are finding is a significant part of the existing pool is disintegrating. There's the disintegrating, especially where there are seams and where there are low-lying areas where it's getting extra moisture. So there's a fair amount of that part that needs to be patched or repaired. So what we're trying to do in this concept plan is to consolidate. We don't have the budget just to wipe the whole pool clean and start over. So we're trying to consolidate what we can of those portions and put that in an area where you can manage that with there's going to be ongoing repairs and patchwork, so we can fix those areas, some of the areas that we see now, but a few years, as you go, more of those areas are going to continue to surface. So we're not eliminating all the repairs that are going to happen on the existing basin. We're just trying to improve as much as possible. So sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but to answer your question, there isn't a specific time frame, like, oh, it's 3 years and it's going to drop dead, or 5 years, but it is going to be ongoing deterioration and more effort by your staff to cut out and patch and repair those areas that are disintegrating.
Okay, so then based on that question, I'm looking at 3 different designs where we're not going to completely solve the problems, but where are those problem areas where do they lie within these concepts?
So where those future problem areas will lie in the existing lap area.
Okay.
And we're going to dissect that and repair what we see today. And those are areas that the new parts of the pool will have 40-year plus life to it. The existing part might have 15-year, 20-year life with ongoing maintenance to it.
Vice Mayor, it looks like the mayor has some comment.
Sure, please.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Thanks. My question was, I saw on the difference between, one of the differences between the preferred concept, the first one and the second one. On the lap pool area, it looks like on the second one, there was, some access, some wheelchair access for that. And I was just wondering what the difference was. What was the cost? To, if we were to say, go ahead and add that to the first preferred concept.
We were estimating that ramp or that access to be a roughly $30,000 line item.
30?
30,000, yes.
Did you get that, Bart?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Appreciate it.
Mhm. 30,000. Okay.
That's 30,000 included into the total cost. Because we're not adding it to one project and not to another. So it's a 30,000 line item regardless of what concept we choose.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. That's a standalone feature that you can add to either concept. Yes.
I have a couple questions. Yeah. Could you go over the lap swimming in the proposed or the preferred concept? I just want to make sure I understand. There was going to be 4 lanes open all the time with the possibility of expanding it to 8. Is that what I'm hearing? Or
Again, that will all depend on the programming, the schedule, which we'll have time to develop. But there's 8 lanes, which depending on if we're doing morning swims, that could be 8 lanes wide, just like as we do now. And then when we open it for open play at our open swim at noon, those could be removed, maintaining 4, or any combination. It could be 3, it could be 5, allowing for, the 5 to 12-year-olds to be in that pool area. So it's 8. We just have it depicted here to show the variety of what can be done in that space.
got it. Okay, thank you, Luis. One more question. Could we go over the shower and bath area again? I thought I heard the word rejuvenate. Can you kind of explain what that means?
Well, I'll start, and if I mess it up, Allison she is the project architect, but she'll correct me. But there were definite things identified to be improved in there, and that's drainage of the floor, cleaning up the space, repainting, recoating the spaces, improving some of the privacy, making sure that individual stalls and areas are more private for the users. I think those were the primary items. Okay.
Okay, so we're not gutting that in there and redoing it all. This is more of a remodel.
It would be a modernization of that space. So it would be essentially a gut of the restroom facility. So you're relocating fixtures, making sure we have accessibility. We're meeting all of those requirements, the fixture counts and such. So that would be for both locker spaces and then the 2 family restrooms as well. Also in that dollar amount for architectural, we'll have improvements to the admission sequence just for better customer service. So we'll be outlining a better desking area so people know where to come, wayfinding and such.
Okay.
That'll be included in architectural.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a couple questions as to the current status of the pool. You mentioned some of the deterioration of seams and ongoing maintenance. Do you guys have a number of what we're spending annually on our pool maintenance budget? Does anyone have that out there? That's kind of an estimate of what we're having to spend to keep the surface intact? Anybody know?
I will look over in this direction.
Okay.
I think we might have to.
You can dig on that for me. That'd be good. Just curious. And then also, when we talk about the pool, we also need to talk about the mechanical systems.
Yes.
And we talked about the surface, but how about the piping, the plumbing, the pumps, filtration systems? Tell me about the age. When were they last replaced? Like, I'm sure we've done work to these pools in the last 15 years. So I'd like to know really what we're replacing when it comes to mechanical systems, and are those included in this project too?
So we are replacing the above grade mechanical systems that are in the building. So filters, and the pumping systems for the existing pool. We are leaving in place, we're replacing the deck. We're leaving in place all of the piping underneath the pool. That piping it's a combination of a cement lined ductile iron pipe, which is a pretty durable pipe. So we don't have a lot of concerns over that. And your staff hasn't experienced a lot of water loss coming from broken pipes under the pool. So we'll preserve the bulk of that and replace what's basically under the deck as we rip the deck out. And then the new pool areas will all have new mechanical systems and piping for that.
And so did anyone ever ask what the cost to rehabilitate the existing pool as is? Did they ever come up with a budget for what it would cost to reline or resurface or rebuild the pool as is?
And we did not, but I would say it would be significantly more. It's a 19,000 square foot pool. I would have, if you were to redo the pool, you're probably talking $15 to $20 million cost to do that.
Mhm.
It's a sizable structure.
To duplicate what we have today.
Yes.
And then what would it cost to keep it going for another 10 years? What do you think?
We did not estimate that, but we'd be glad to do that.
Just, I didn't know if the no build concept was ever proposed. I know we have needs, but how about just fixing what we have or keeping it going longer? I wasn't a party to a lot of this process, so I'm coming in a little bit later than most, but I'm just curious as to what the rationale was, like what the impetus was to get this moving, and then how we move to reduction in water space, reduction in lane lengths, and
we didn't
additions. So
we talked, I guess, qualitatively about that, but not, we did not assign number, quantify that. And one of the challenging parts of that is really, there are parts of it that aren't worth keeping in place and rehabilitating, especially the shallow end of the pool is I may not have mentioned this, but it's structures in poor condition, but the subgrade is also undermined and the shallow end is actually sinking by a couple of inches. So it really isn't a good option to rehabilitate that and leave that alone. I believe that there's at least portions of that need to be removed and replaced as part of the rehabilitation. And then at that point, you're drawing the line between where you start and where you stop.
But we're kind of doing that already, right? We're taking pieces of the pool and leaving it. It's
absolutely
not an unusual or
unacceptable
process. I just was curious if we ever considered that, because I just want to throw it out there.
Agreed, and we'd be glad to entertain if you wanted to move that line farther.
I don't know, and I'm not into micromanaging that. Well, I was looking at it from a third party standpoint.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
One more.
Any other? Sure.
You talked about using some of the existing piping, especially in the lap pool area. Did you guys scope those lines just to look at the integrity?
We did not scope them. We base it largely off of records of water loss leaking.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives us an indication that the integrity is good. It's difficult to unlike say like a water line or sanitary sewer line, it's a little bit difficult to just run a camera and scope that line because it branches. There's so many branches and turns and small pipes connected to big pipes that it's hard to, we can't run a camera through all sections of that pipe. So that process is difficult. So the best we can do is go based on what the pipe material is and what the history is. If there have been breaks on that, we can add to that additional pressure testing or something along those lines if we want to do that before as a validation or confirmation before we get into the actual construction.
You plan on doing that? Pressure testing?
We've not done that at this point, but we can.
Do you plan on it?
Yes, we plan on that prior to the actual construction. Yes. Okay. Especially during the construction process to know once you start removing portions, you pressure test the portions that you're leaving in place.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Please, last question. I know we brought this up during the last conversation in regards to coverage, lifeguard coverage. So looking at the 3 different concepts, what type of coverage are we looking at for each concept?
Yeah, so we did have some internal look at that as well as the consultants, and it looks like we're at either the same number of lifeguards or, and I would say plus or minus 2. So it's not adding a great deal of staffing cost to the operation.
But I think I read the preferred concept is 15 instead of 17, so it'd be less.
Yeah, so it all depends really. The lazy river will determine how many people we need. So that's what's about plus or minus 2. I think right now they have 17 on staff and then they have 4 replacements. So again, it would be similar. It wouldn't be too much outside of which we were concerned about looking at this. So too much outside of what we're currently staffing at.
I could.
Anything else?
Might speak a little bit as to how we got to this point. So I put this on the CIP about 5 years ago. So we're seeing continual increase in maintenance for that facility. And it's fairly significant. So we're starting to rust out the filters. We're starting to have mechanical failures with pumps. Just this week, we blew out the main supply line to the slide. It just deteriorated and exploded out. So the concrete is not in good shape on the whole facility. So these are not things that we just came up with. This has been a planned, this is getting worse and worse and worse. So I wanted to speak a little bit to that because it's not something we just came up with. It's been one of those planned things, and we continue to pump money into that facility to the point where, you know, we really need to think about really doing a major overhaul of it, because we're even replacing a whole gutter section just because the concrete's deteriorated. So I just wanted to give you that back information.
Thank you.
And Louise and Mark, moving forward, knowing that we still have pieces that will need to be replaced moving on, is the idea that that would be funding from department costs, or would we more than likely have to see that as a CIP project to fill in the needs of the parts that we don't do now?
Most likely, I mean, it's hard to tell, you know, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth here and there is kind of how we've been parceling this out over the years. But when you're starting to get 3 or 4 of those in a year, then it starts to become a significant CIP item. So the big thing that Jeff mentioned, that whole zero depth is sinking, which is causing cracking in the gutter system. So if we don't get that fixed, we're going to probably start losing water. Luckily, so far, we haven't been losing water. So we've held pretty lucky so far, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions before I open up public comment?
Couple more, yeah. So I noticed on the memo, staff memo, it says the fiscal impact to the city is $0. Doesn't seem like it's going to be about 6 million if we go.
I can speak to that. So the fiscal impact of this action doesn't carry any fiscal impact per se. You know, we would come back with a construction cost later on. But I think to your point, if an option was chosen that goes beyond budget, then there's additional fiscal discussions.
Okay. So how is this being paid for? Proposed to be paid for?
So this is being paid through debt service as a capital improvement project, in the capital improvement plan.
So we're going to bond the entire amount?
At this point, I believe, and I don't know that budget is here, but yes, we are budgeting the entire amount or debting.
And then as far as the operations of it, since we're maybe adding or not adding a couple of lifeguards, so what's the operational cost going forward? It
will not be impacted. We will have to look at how the total impact is going to be between the Indoor Aquatic Center and this. So we'll have to make that balance out. Those are things that we've discussed operationally, starting to look at right now, not waiting till the construction starts. The condensed window of time that we're working in right now doesn't allow us to necessarily forecast everything, but we would, you know, as we have been doing through this year, looking at our cost and our how we staff appropriately, how we recover some of the costs of our programs, and that'll be all factored in as moving forward. You know, we've talked about that in the past, and not related to the pool specifically, but to Parks and Recreation, looking at cost recovery in some of our programs to help supplement some of the fee or some of the expenses that we do incur. So
Thank you.
Any other questions before I open up public comment? Thank you. All right, general public comment on this one?
Hey, my name's Eric.
Mhm.
Is this possible to back up the slides? All right. We already had a picture that showed a really nice city pool. It's the one we own right now. There is a very nice facility at Haskell. There's indoor pools at Lawrence High. There's indoor pools at Free State. They are 50 meters, which I don't know if any of you watched the Olympics and watched the 25-meter swimming competition. There wasn't any, by the way. 50 meters is what you want. And if you don't build 50 meters, what are you here for? We just heard a whole bunch of bunk by people who had money invested in getting paid for doing this. If you lined up 30,000 Lawrence residents and said, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a city who has $5 million shortfall to kind of find? And we have a $6 million project right now that doesn't need to be done because our city pool is wonderful. My kid was there just this weekend. We didn't see any cracking. We didn't get our feet cut on the concrete. We had a wonderful week in this pool at our city pool that is wonderful. If you could ask, how much is that going to cost for everyone when we just added $6 million? I was here last year when the AAA swim group came begging for a cheaper rate on the Lawrence City rent indoor pool so that they could have lessons there. And because everything's going to creep up in price, they couldn't afford to do lessons. It passed it on. Half of their students dropped out because they couldn't afford swim lessons anymore. So if we're talking about Black kids having chance in swimming and everything, let's figure out whether they can pay for these giant swim rates that are going up because the people who are renting out the place to teach swim lessons can't afford the place. We have wonderful facilities. This is like our golf courses here in town. Let's just make a fifth one to compete with the other one. We have the facilities. If people want to put on meets, they can put on meets. This only makes something fancier and new for 2 years. It doesn't show what is bad with our ticketing process or our bathrooms that already are ADA compliant. They just breeze over that because they're getting paid to breeze over that. We have absolutely the pool. The pool is going to be closed. We have kids who would like to go to the pool while they're kids. They're going to have to deal with constructions process. They're not going to tell you the truth of that, but kids want to go to the pool. If we want to figure out where 6 million could go, instead of doing this and raising the rate of every single kid and have to pay $34.99 to go to the pool on a Saturday, how about we go ahead and just have $6 million towards entry fees for the next few years where anyone under 18 can go swim for free? Because if you lined up 30,000 Lawrence residents and said you could go swim for free at the outdoor pool during the short window of which it's open every year, that's what they would choose. I guarantee it. There's nothing wrong. If an engineer is going to stand up here and say we have 2 inches of sinking in the shallow entry, where's the damn picture? I would think there'd be a picture of that. 2 inches of sinking. I own a pool. I know what that would look like because that doesn't hold water if you have 2 inches of sinking. I don't believe anything that's being pitched here.
Thank you very much, sir. You got your 3 minutes. Appreciate you. Could talk later if you want. Yeah, if you can get up there, Mike, help with the podium.
My name is Glenn Brown, 66049. Good evening, Commissioners and Mr. Mayor. I'm in a wheelchair and I rely on the pools as my only form of exercise. One of these concepts that I've listened to, they're going to remove the ADA access. I've heard some talk about stairs or some kind of lifting device. Wheelchairs don't go up and down stairs very well. And I can't use stairs that have more than a 2-inch rise. I tried one of those lifting devices once at Free State and I almost drowned. So I'm not going to do that again. But I really would like to have the ADA access in the pool. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Please. Just head to the podium whenever you're ready.
My name is Joan Brown. Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. So what I wanted to say is that I think the first concept, the seems like you don't want to reduce the size of the pool. People are wanting more lap lanes and you're making less, and the pool's smaller and it's, I don't think that's a good idea. And also I hear that the groups like the Boys and Girls Club and some of the groups in the summer would not be able to come to the pool in the summer because this pool would be smaller and there wouldn't be enough room for the groups. And the lazy river, to me, seems like it's so little in the first concept that you'd just be getting on and getting off, and it wouldn't be any fun. And you're not, you wouldn't, it's so little you couldn't use a flotation device. I think that's about all I wanted to say. Thank you, guys.
you.
Except for make sure it's whatever concept you pick is wheelchair accessible. Because otherwise my husband and I go in the summer when we don't do the indoor water aerobics, we go to the outdoor pool and he needs to get in the pool in the wheelchair, and the first concept does not have that access, according to what I heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's back up. So you've got this on the regular agenda. And down below, looking ahead on your agenda here, you've got comprehensive financial reporting, and on down to the city manager's report, you're going to receive information about measures to reduce the anticipated budget shortfall, budget deficit. I can't understand why any department in this town would dare bring you recommended proposals right now with anything but programs that are going to fall within budget. We had the entire fire department in here. You guys were trying to cut them. Why all of a sudden do we bring in proposals that have an extra million or two or three on them? Speaking as a taxpayer, as somebody who just got my notice of the ad valorem tax increases that's going on and all the public meetings that you're going to have about that, do you really want this to be one of those things they're going to rail on you guys about? That's dumb. I think a directive needs to be given to every city department right now that until we reach a point where we're not facing a budget deficit, you don't bring proposals that are outside the budget. I think that's easy. And it's an easy directive that you guys could give to the departments and to the city manager to direct the departments to not bring anything that's going to exceed budget. Because then you're having to explain where that money is going to come from. Because you want to exceed budget here, but you're taking money from housing. I noticed that in the budget stuff, you're talking about the 150,000 or the money to from the general fund to the housing trust. We're not going to do that now. And that's small money compared to the extra money these guys want to spend. Fiscal minded, guys. It's our money that you're spending. What's so hard about that? These tax meetings that you're going to have, these are going to be some of the topics that they're going to be talking about how you just waste our money and the departments just bring you things. One of the viewers that commented here just a minute ago said this is already passed. It's already decided that you guys are just going to do it. And then when one of the commissioners up there asked how much this was going to cost, good question, Ms. Larson. And it's just shame that the department couldn't answer it. And they put zero impact here because your vote tonight doesn't actually cost anything, but what your vote leads to is going to cost a whole hell of a lot.
Thank you. Anybody else want to talk to this comment or this issue?
Yeah, listening to that, I would propose that we do get estimates from people other than the people that the engineer and stuff, that what it would cost just to redo the aquatic center that we have right now. I know they said something about $15 million. I know it built a few swimming pools, and I think that's a little outlandish, but I would just ask that maybe we do get some estimates, and estimates usually doesn't cost anything. So be interested just to look at that since nobody bothered to get that done. Yeah, that seems like a pretty healthy price tag. I mean, we've got what 730 participants in the program that really want to see the aquatic center change and blah, blah, blah. But I think you got thousands of people that want to see our taxes go down. So just that's what I got to say on it. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
How's it going? Andrew Gallagher, 66047. I'll be super brief. I'm late to the conversation on this. I really like the ideas that we've got. I'd love if we could do the biggest lazy river for free. Count on you guys. But I was just looking at the changes that we're going to make, and it looks like where we're shrinking the square footage is a lot of the spaces where teens play. I have teenagers, so just like even if we were looking at where the lap lanes are, and if we do 4 and 4, I think that's definitely a benefit. I was a little worried that we were going to have all 8 lanes open all the time, and I was like, I don't know if my kids are going to be excited with a 3-foot play area over here when they're normally in the 5-foot. Just something to be mindful of, making sure that we've got space where the kids that are like, because there's a lot of kids in that other section right now on most days, and I'm not sure how much joy they're going to have if there's not a space where they can throw a football around or anything like that. But love the ideas that we've got. Again, free lazy river.
Any other public comment in the room?
My name is Kevin, 66044. I've been an aquatics annual pass holder and daily swimmer since 2017. I think the proposed design changes to the outdoor aquatic facilities don't address the needs of the aquatic community. The Outdoor Aquatic Center serves a diverse community that includes lab swimmers, swim teams, water walkers, aerobics classes, senior activity groups, swim lessons, patrons rehabilitating physical injuries, and others. All of these activities require traditional multi-use lane space and are not served by these extra features that have extremely limited functionality. In your review of the designs, I'd like y'all to please consider that this concept of total water recreation area is a misleading metric that does not reflect the ways that the pool can or can't be used. A lot of those extra spaces can't be used by all these people. The pool in its existing state already does not meet the demand. There's a line at the gate before the pool opens for exercisers every morning, and it is often difficult to get a lane. Patrons spill over into other parts of the pool and do the best they can, but this will not be possible with the new designs. Because the pool does not open to the general public until 1 p.m., most of the facility will remain empty for half of every day, while the most frequent users compete for room in the highly reduced multi-use lane space. Cutting the space in half will severely limit the number of patrons who can use the pool. These new designs come at a time when we are losing access to facilities in other parts of the city. Lawrence no longer operates the Carl Knox Natatorium. KU has closed its pool, and Lawrence Aquatics hours were reduced after the pandemic. At the same time, the price of an annual pass has doubled in the time that I've since started paying it. The city's own survey at first identified lap swimming and swim lessons as the top 2 most requested programs for the revised aquatic center. And there are fewer and fewer places for us to go. So I'd say the demand for this kind of space is greater than ever, and the proposed changes are expensive and a step in the wrong direction.
Anybody else in the room?
Patrick Suzo, 66044. I'm a lap swimmer and daily lap swimmer. And my only worry is that it seems to be shrinking in terms of time. The pool at KU is closed, as someone was saying. And the indoor pool, there are less hours available. And the other pool is so limited, it's for the summer and it's over. And I'm sorry, I was out of town. I'm not aware about the whole proposal. But I would rather see money spent on lifeguard and more time available
for swimmers than expanding something that is used so little for such a short time. Thank you.
Anybody else in the room? Anybody online?
Julie Jones?
Julie Jones, 4726 West 24th Street. We have a shortfall in the budget. We have a lot of wants and needs with the swimming pool, and I understand the deterioration of the unit itself. I would like to see a few more bids, and since we do have a shortfall in the budget, I'd like to see this tabled and looked at in the future to fund it until we get our budget balanced, and maybe then we'd have extra money to do the expansion and do all the things that people want. But it seems like right now we're out here trying to buy a Lamborghini, and I have zero in my checking account, but I still want to buy a Lamborghini. That's the way I view the concept that's going on with this pool project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Watts? Hi, what the first speaker was saying is great, Eric. I really appreciate that, because our town staff has brought in salespeople to pitch something that they're making money on. We probably are going to need a new swimming pool in the future, and it's going to cost more. But that doesn't mean we can't take our time and make assessments. And again, going back to what Eric was talking about, that $6 million dedicated as a fund to help people go to the pool as a service is really something to think about. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
That's all the comments.
All right. Thank you, Sherry. All right, commissioners, any other questions after the feedback for staff or anything?
I did have a question.
Okay.
I think it was Jeff, you mentioned that the shallow end had sunk 2 inches. Is that 2 inches over this last year, the last decade?
It wasn't immediately. It's been sinking over time, and you can't see it when you're out there. And what you see is the gutter, and that area is flooded. And the water actually, you can see the scum line in the photos where the water level is actually running up on the deck past the pool itself. So you can see evidence of that area sinking and the impact of that on the pool. But it hasn't happened overnight. It's been occurring over time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we are.
Real quick, Louis, sorry. And Mr. Leah, you brought up the conversation around Haskell. Is there, when that was brought up in the discovery phase engagement, what were your thoughts on that? Do you feel like there's an opportunity there for us to speak with the administration at Haskell to start building that, forging that relationship and helping to do some?
Yeah, that was definitely my impression when we walked out of the meeting with Haskell, that they are open to some ideas, even from our end, going, how we can best, not just for Haskell, I think that was their interest. How do we get some staff? How do we get some activity in there, but also on our side programmatically? So, schedule allowing for multiple programs to happen at once in multiple pools, as opposed to, just dedicating one pool to one thing. So it gives us some flexibility. So they're definitely open to the conversations. I don't know what type of commitments they're able to make but the conversation was very positive and encouraging.
Not to put words in anyone's mouth. Is it the idea that it's strictly recreational, or would it possibly open up opportunities for them to be a site for competition, swim meets?
I think they were open to all ideas.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So how good a condition are their facilities and infrastructure at there?
We talked about having a visit out there. We have not done that. That was a couple of weeks ago, but the offer was made, and we will make a point. They make it the way they sound is, and it's in very good shape. It's just a matter of utilization.
So underutilized right now.
Underutilized.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so we're tasked with approving a concept for the Outdoor Aquatic Center today. I'm not sure how you all feel with moving forward on this, or whether we want to try to pick one that you're interested in, or discuss some of the other information we got, regarding the costs and, how to move forward with repairs immediately if needed, and then upgrading if we so choose.
I think before we move on to any type of concept, I would be curious to know what specifically the commission would want staff to bring back, because I've heard a lot of presumptive questions, some lead-in questions, but I didn't hear anyone say, I'd like staff to bring back XYZ. So I think before we even have the discussion on concepts, I'd be curious to know if there's anyone on the commission that is wanting staff to bring them back any specific information. Did it sound like we were leading staff to that? I wasn't, but if there's information that someone needs before they make a decision, then I think we need to do the due diligence of giving that to staff before, it's not put them in a gotcha situation.
Sure. So the kind of question, the information that I would need to address that specific item is, what would it cost to repair our existing pool, not necessarily replace all the existing structure, but repair it and make it functional, rehabilitate it to such that we could use it as is. I know we want to also consider using a portion of that pool for our future renovations as well. So I want to make sure that we're all comfortable that we're making this $6 million investment, we're using infrastructure that may be 20 or 30 years old, and there's unintended consequences from, repurposing existing infrastructure. So I'm a little uncomfortable with that as we mix in new infrastructure, but I know these people are professionals and they know what they're doing. But I really want to know what it would cost just to fix the pool and put the water back in it for next year, because I never really heard that. And if we really are having sinking subsidence, if we really haven't done hydrostatic pressure testing on the piping we plan on using for the next 30 years, I don't know. It just makes me wonder if we're going to spend all this money on some mixed aged infrastructure and then end up with a bunch of problems down the road because we patched it together. So I'm sure this happens a lot, but for me, the questions I would want answered would be, have we thought about what it would cost to make the pool useful for another 10 or 20 years? And then also, what it would be like to maybe phase in some changes where we maybe put different aspects of these features in at different times as we can afford them. So those are things that I'd like back from staff, because I haven't heard anyone suggest that we've ever even looked at what it would cost to keep it and repair it.
We had those conversations a couple of years ago, but
yeah. And so, I wasn't privy to that. So
just noting for the record.
Mm-hmm.
I have the concerns I have is about the piping that we're going to be using, old piping, and under the guise that, well, it's not leaking. We don't think it's leaking. Doesn't seem to be leaking. I'm concerned about using, mixed age infrastructure, because once we get in there and so, we find out that, that's not the case, then we're going to have to tear that up. That's going to be extra costs. I mean, we've got some soft costs in there, but that could eat it up pretty quick. And I'm just actually pretty surprised that we were thoughtful enough to do core testing.
The concrete in the pool.
Yeah, in the pool, but yet we did not think to do any sort of pressure testing or scoping of existing lines that we were going to be using. So I'm really struggle with that we weren't thoughtful enough to do that.
So those are two pieces of information.
Yeah,
We wouldn't even think about it.
I mean,
Question, because it's new, and I'm not a subject matter expert in this. So it's the scoping and pressure, are those things that are typically done in the conceptual phase, or when do you actually do scoping and pressure testing, where we're at in this process?
Well, I mean, if we're conceptualizing the use of existing equipment and resources, I mean, in reality, we are considering it, but testing it, of course, would happen at a later date. We just have to either decide we want to use that piping or not, and then the whole thing changes, and then we'll have to probably rebid the whole project.
If it was an area of emphasis, we would have put it in the initial RFP. For the
Yeah,
scope.
yeah, I
We
would
have put
think.
an emphasis in the scope.
And I don't know about, but water, is probably the hardest thing to control. And so I just don't know. Mark pointed out that there's some aging, we've got some problems. And so I just don't know how many problems we have with the existing plumbing and piping. And if it's fine, great. But if we're going to put new pressure and new devices and new pumps and new parameters that these things are going to work under, it concerns me. That's what worries. That's what I've seen happen in the past when you retrofit existing plumbing like this. So,
And I would just, excuse me, sorry about that. But I would disagree. I think it should have been done at the concept page, since we did it with the, checking to see if there's any cracks or whatnot in the pool, to see what that needed to be, whether the concrete needed to be changed out. It just seemed like a pretty basic test to do a pressure testing, done them a lot. So.
yeah, I just don't know how hard it is to isolate all the lines. But I would say that those are the questions, Commissioner, that I would like to have answered, I guess, if we're going to be considering anything moving forward.
Well, I guess my understanding and a couple of things, obviously when this went on the CIP several years ago, the question was, we had some preliminary discussions, and then the first assessment was, this is going to be in excess of the amount of money that we have. And so the question was, if we're going to spend 6 million or more to fix it, what does the community want to see if we're going to spend $6 million? Do they want, even if it was $6.1 million to fix the pool, is that what you want, or do you want something different? And, that was, one of the considerations is, what do you want different? What I understood was, from early on, if we just said we couldn't start with a blank page and say, well, if we were just going to build a brand new pool, in West Lawrence and just, fill this in with grass, because that is a $15-20 million deal. And that by reusing this part of the pool is the only way we even get to 6 million. That being said, I think those are good questions we need to continue to ask. But at this point, and I guess this goes back to this question of the fiscal impact, this is a concept plan, with estimates of cost. We go from here, like we always do, from a concept to architectural drawings to getting bids from folks who tell us. And as we saw on the consent agenda, sometimes bids come in high, sometimes bids come in low. To me, I don't want to go over the budget, what we've had in the CIP for a long time, in the 6.1 million. But I would be interested in, I would say, by the way, I would probably say, let's go ahead and put in the $30,000 entry ramp in the original concept. But beyond that, I think you put optional additional shade, optional additional slide, and, an alternate bid for a longer lazy river. I don't think I would put an alternate in for a bigger splash pad. We have 2 other splash pads, thinking about a third. I think that I want to look at. I think if you're going to look as an alternative, it could be a lazy river. Now, who knows? Those bids could come at 6.9 million. We could say, forget it. It could come in at 8 million. We could say, forget it. It could come in at 5.9 million. And we could say, hey, this is under budget. Let's add something back in. But we won't know any of that until we approve a concept that they can start that design on. And by the way, the other thing I put in as an alternative is starting August 15th and being done by, May 31st. And what would it cost to guarantee that? And not, miss half the 2 seasons. I would want something in the contract about that, if we can make that happen. And if the answer is it can't be done, well, then we know. But all of that is when it comes back to us and we make those decisions. I would tonight approve the basic concept with those other identifiers as alternates. I think we could also ask them to come back with, before we vote on the contract, come back with estimates on the cost to repair the pool as it exists, as well as the testing on the pipes. And we could know that before we ever spend a dime, before we ever approve a contract. That'd be my suggestion.
Oh, I like that. Mayor, do you have anything to add?
Sorry about that. A little bit slow on the draw. But yeah, that sounds good to me. I concur with Commissioner Finkeldye on, especially the ramp entry for wheelchair access on the lap pool. If it's with 30,000, include that in the initial concept. But those points that Commissioner Finkeldye made, I agree. At this point, we're just looking at the concept itself, but when it comes back to us for the actual contract, then we will hopefully have some additional information there that we've gone ahead and requested. So I hope that helps.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you.
I would add the other thing I think, based on the feedback we've gotten, is I'd like staff to go ahead and move forward in the next couple months while waiting on that, both talking to Haskell as well as developing some, what would this look like? How would the 50-meter pool look indoor? And, go to work on some of those refined questions, because if we can't answer them, that's something to consider when we're deciding to spend the money. So I think spending that time while we get construction documents and bids to find out those answers, I think would be a good use of time.
I would just like to add one thing to the folks who were concerned about the ADA access. The basic concept does include ADA access to the smaller shallow end pool, and then if we add on, we could potentially put it on the lap pool. Okay.
But they currently require a lift anyway, right?
Yeah.
But we want an easier access than.
Yeah, they have a ramp.
A required lift, yeah.
Yeah, we have a ramp. The concept shows a ramp on both, potentially on the second pool as well as the first one.
So does anyone want to pose or ask any further questions before we put together a movement on this?
Well, I guess I would ask, I think technically the only thing on the budget, on the agenda is to approve the concept, but we've added a few other provisos. Craig or Lewis, you've got kind of the requests to bring back with it. I don't know if we have to put those all in the motion.
But we need consensus, right?
Sure. Do we need a consensus to approve a concept plan? But I guess what we also requested was additional information. So I guess something that would draw together the two ideas of either approving whatever concept plan you want to move forward with, and then also requesting those additional pieces of information.
Yeah, my only question is, do we need that?
My question was, you have a commissioner that's asking for testing. So where does that come in? How does that impact concept design and then now this idea of testing?
Yeah, I think I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I think what I'm asking for is proof that when we spend $6 million, that the infrastructure that is in place is suitable and will live as long as the rest of the equipment that is underground. And if we are not certain of that fact, then we should probably reconsider whether or not we want to replace the plumbing as a part of this.
So you're saying you want testing to be done before you approve the final?
Correct. I mean, yeah, there's no construction documents. There's at this point in time, I just want to make sure we've considered that.
I just want to make sure for clarity purposes for everyone's, you're not asking for that right now.
No, I'm not asking for anything right now except
that's
consideration thereof.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm making concurrence. I was a little slow on the uptake, but I'm in concurrence with the preferred concept, with the addition of the ADA ramp and a bigger leisure area, the lazy river. All the other vanity items, we can look at something done at a later time.
Is that what you?
Yeah.
Okay. So is that a motion?
That, because there was also optional, like additional shading. I just want to make sure just ADA ramp and lazy river.
Yeah, I guess my motion would be to approve the preferred concept with the addition of the ADA ramp, asking for alternative bids on the second slide, additional shading, and a longer lazy river as part of the bid process. And it would also include the two tests we've talked about,
But just, yeah, just.
the test and the cost.
Yeah, just understand the cost, correct. Okay, so that motion was, so which one of you is making that motion?
I made it.
Okay, Commissioner Finkeldine made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Nay.
Those opposed? Nay. So the motion passes 4-1 with one commissioner in the negative. Okay. We'll move on to our work session items. This is an opportunity for the City Commission to discuss items in greater detail. The Commission will take no binding action on items during this time. Work session topics are eligible for public comment. Members of the public will be limited to 3 minutes for their comments once the work session is over. So first off is the comprehensive financial report and audit from RSM.
Good evening. I am Rochelle Matthews, the Director of Finance. And tonight we are pleased to bring you the 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, which I'll refer to ACFR from here on out. We also brought you the popular Annual Financial Report, more commonly known as the PAFR. To start off, the ACFR is a full set of comprehensive audited financial statements that comply with accounting rules and regulations as established by the Government Accounting Standards Boards. This large, complex document has to be audited by an outside independent auditor. The city's firm for this year's engagement is RSM, and our audit partner this year is Kevin Smith. He will be up here shortly to give you his report on the ACFR and the audit process. The PAFR document is a complementary document to the ACFR, where it extracts that financial data and tried to communicate it in a way to a broader audience that may not have a background in public finance. It's also our opportunity to provide more information about the city, how we're structured, what our demographics look like. Both of these full reports can be found on our finance webpage on the city's website, or you can reach out to finance and we're happy to provide copies. Before I turn it over to Kevin, I'd really like to take the opportunity to recognize the dedicated work that it takes to prepare these documents and get through the audit. So our process really starts in the January timeframe and concludes here with you tonight when we present the completed documents to the Commission. I would like to acknowledge the full finance department for their work on this, especially Jennifer Worth, Josh Weisenbaker, Christy Bowles, Paula Branzenor, Mary Biggs, and Mary Bisbee. This department's time and dedication has resulted in the city receiving the 2022 Government Finance Offers Association Triple Crown winner. So that means we received awards of excellence in both our annual audit, our popular report, and our budget document. And we are in the process of submitting all 3 2020 versions for that same process, and we look forward to GFOA's review. So for now, I'd like to turn it over to Kevin Smith, and I'm happy to answer questions towards the end.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. As Rochelle mentioned, I'm here to go through the results from the 2023 audit. The main purpose of our audit is to express an opinion on those financial statements that city management compiles. So the opinion that you see from RSM within that document is an unmodified opinion, which means a clean opinion. So that is the highest level of assurance that you can receive as a part of an external audit. One of the other documents that you receive as well from RSM is a compliance report. This document includes the summary of our federal grant audit. There were 2 programs that were looked at this year, the ARPA funding and then an airport improvement grant. You will see one finding reported over the airport improvement grant. There were no findings over the ARPA program. There is a corrective action plan that management puts together that's also included in that compliance report.
There were also a few financial statement findings that you'll see noted in there as well, to correct some things from prior years that prior year financial statements, mainly some misclassifications of temporary note proceeds and liabilities that should have been in one fund that were reported in another. There's a summary of that within that document. And again, you'll see a corrective action plan that management put together there as well. But overall, from a financial statement perspective, a clean audit. Again, appreciate city staff, received full cooperation from everyone we worked with, had access to all the information we needed to as a part of the process. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Okay. Bart, do you have any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Is that a comment?
Do you have any, do you want to stand for any, if we don't have any questions, I guess you don't have any to answer, right? A clean audit is always a good thing, though. Thank you very much for that. Okay, well, guess we can move on.
Public comment.
Yeah. So public comment on this work session item? Any online? Okay, we're going to move over to our next work
You
session.
want to make some comments?
Oh, do you want to make
I want
comments?
to just make a comment
Okay,
too.
sorry.
First, I just want to, thank the team and Jennifer in particular as she walks out the door, for working on this audit. Lisa knows, Commissioner Lawson knows better than I, but we haven't always had clean audits and we haven't always had a very short presentation. It's often taken a lot longer to understand that. So this is a good accomplishment, an important accomplishment, and to have the clean audit. And, I certainly appreciate the detail. And I mean, it probably goes without saying, but many of us, I spent a long time going through it. And I appreciate the detail and it does give some good overall pictures of how the city works. But this is one of these items to me that people only talk about if they're bad. And we don't want to talk about them when they're good. I mean, we don't need to talk about them when they're good, but it's very important. So thank you and thank the whole team for their efforts on this.
I agree 100%.
Okay.
Add real quick that I appreciate the work, Rochelle, and especially Allie. I think it was about this time last year when we knew we were losing Jeremy. I think we thought our finance department was going to implode. But I think, as far as shoes being filled, I think you've exceeded that expectation. And I've appreciated having discussions with you. And I've greatly appreciated Allie's presentations and her being able to lay out things that I feel like that were started with that design and framework that Jeremy put together, and you all have just put your own spin on it. But I do appreciate it. It's helped me, for my 3 years that I've been on the commission. So thank you very much for that.
And if it's all right, I would like to add, I joined this process midway, and all credit goes to the finance team who had everything started and teed up and got me inserted into the process to where it was a pretty efficient, and won't say quick because it does take several months, but it was a great way to get introduced in the team and get immersed in these financials.
Yeah, I just would like to add that this process right here, what we have in our hands today was a very intentional process. From the time that I first got on the commission, we had some serious issues with our audits and things that needed to be corrected. And we brought in staff. We had Brian and we had Jeremy Wilmoth, and it was very planned as to how we would get to where we are today. And I just appreciate all the past work that's been done on it, and the commissioners hung in there, and, we're able to get enough support to provide the funding to put in the new financial systems in place to help out. And you and Allie have continued that, and I really do appreciate it. But this was very intentional and very planned. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Anything else?
I got one more thing. Well, we might, and this may not be the right place for it, but is it time that we look at changing or putting it out for bid again, our
Audit.
auditor? Yeah, I think this is the 6th year for this one.
It is. We did go out and received a proposal again from RSM and accepted that extension. So we did go back out and did make that selection. So I think we're in year 1 of 3.
Oh, okay.
Correct. As part of that process, we did request a partner rotation. So you would have seen Kristen Hughes up here before. So by engaging a different partner, even inside the same firm, we get fresh eyes, somebody reviewing our process that hasn't seen it before. That does give some of those same processes changing audit firms.
Yeah.
Did we not get any other bids or?
We received 2.
Okay.
And felt this was by far the most qualified. Right.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move forward with our next work session item, which is to receive strategic plan update from the community engagement commitment team.
Good evening, commissioners.
Good afternoon or evening, I should say.
Kurt, I'm not seeing this as an option.
Thanks, Jay.
Sorry. While we pull this up, I'll introduce myself. Commissioners and Vice Mayor, Mayor on Zoom. My name is Corey Wallace, and I serve the city as our Director of Communications and Community Relations. And tonight we'll walk through our community engagement commitment area and kind of explore how it engages and interacts with not only our community members, but the strategic plan that drives our action forward. Thank you, Kurt. So I'll start with just a general agenda. Our goal tonight is to drive through 4 key areas of activity. So you can kind of see how our community engagement commitment area has expanded over the years, what we've done to scale that activity, what we've done to make it more equitable and more easy for people to engage. That's a critical part of this work, and this work is very intentional. So it's important for you to know kind of how it all interacts with the rest of the strategic plan. So our agenda tonight includes 4 key areas. First, a commitment overview. We'll talk about the commitment area in general and how it interacts with other commitments and outcomes housed in the strategic plan. Then we'll drive through our key strategic KPIs, the 3 areas of work that really drive our intentionality and our priorities, our objectives, and then I'll give you some specific project examples that we're working through. You'll be able to hear commentary from members of our community, and you'll be able to see where we're going and where we'd like this to go as we move forward. So as a reminder, there are 6 areas of commitment in the strategic plan, and it identifies how we do our work and the methodologies behind our priority setting and how we kind of engage in this work with the community. And they are community engagement, efficient and effective processes, equity and inclusion, sound fiscal stewardship. You can read. There are 7 core commitments, and tonight we're going to discuss community engagement specifically. When you think about the language of community engagement, what it really means in plain language is that we're going to work with the entire community to listen, share, and engage with our community to drive action and build trust in city government. This is a tall order, but it's a mandate that's reliant upon our community working together to co-create solutions to the problems that we're facing. And so it's a privilege to do this kind of work. We know you liked the outcome and commitment crosswalk, Commissioner Sellers, so we thought we'd bring it back in order for you to kind of look at it through a different lens. You'll see that there's community engagement work groups or working areas in every single one of our outcomes. And you'll note that that you'll hear a little bit more specifics about how those outcomes intersect with the commitment in a minute. But I did want to kind of bring this back so you can see that these are designed to identify areas of activity. If you're looking for some examples of specific projects that are housed within each outcome area, you can see them identified here. Tonight was a great example of how we work with the community to gather data, both
kind of hard data, numbers, and also anecdotal data, or what I call ethnographic data, which is basically the stories people tell us about what they need. So you'll see that in most of these projects, there's a mix or a matrix of activity in these areas where we're designed not just to gather survey responses, but we really want to gather people's insights. We want to gather people's ideas, and we want to co-create solutions to challenges that are facing some of these areas. So I just want to draw your attention to some of them. Aside from the Outdoor Aquatic Center project, we've done community engagement work in the music census, in the station expansion for LDCFM. We've done community engagement experiences that are across all sorts of topics. The ADA Sidewalk Project, the Downtown Transit Center project, all of these have community engagement functions. Most specifically, we're looking at KPIs, or, key progress areas. And one of the interesting things about these KPIs is that they're really rooted in trust. They're rooted in the ability to sit with people and listen to them when it's convenient for them, and provide an opportunity for them to conveniently offer us feedback. That requires an attention to equity. It requires an attention to reaching out to people and going where they are. And as we scale this project, as we scale this program, we'll work even harder to scale and to make it easier for people to engage with us. I will say that these KPIs are measured not just by the numbers and advancing around the KPIs, but there are kind of some soft areas of the KPIs that we pay attention to too. And I think it's interesting when you look at them specifically, the ways in which we hope to impact, for example, KPI 1.1. % of residents who are satisfied or very satisfied with the access, availability, and timeliness of information. Information comes to people in a variety of ways, and so we have a variety of groups that are paying attention to this KPI. I want to draw your attention to the first one, the Community Engagement Working Group. That's an interdepartmental working group that I meet with once a month, and we talk about all of the community engagement projects, and we try to be proactive around areas of activity that we know are a priority. If we're looking at the IAP2 kind of process, IAP2 stands for International Association of Public Participation. That's the 2 and the P. We really try to kind of broaden our team's understanding of not only best practices, but soft practices and soft skills that can help them address issues faster and get in front of people in a more equitable and effective way. Team Lawrence is working on through an IAP2 training expansion. To date, we have around 50 people, including myself and the rest of my team, that have been trained in IAP2 best practices. That comes to us through a membership in an organization, IAP2, that has allowed us to really explore, where this industry is going and how this work looks. But I will tell you that we're not just limited by what IAP2 is indicating. This community has been engaged in a public conversation around where we should be going since the inception of the City of Lawrence. And we want to be respectful of the nature of community activism in this community. And so there should be a space for community activists to feel heard. And we are monitoring what community activists are telling us. We have sat down with community activists to discuss things with them. We answer their questions as they come to us. But I do want to kind of speak to community activism and how it looks within this framework, because it is a part of the community conversation here. And I want you to hear that it's something that we do monitor. We do attempt to build relationships with activists. Traditional communications mediums, what that really means is our website, our Flame newsletter, social media, more traditional outposts for identifying ways that we can educate the community, update them on projects, process, and that also includes a relationship with journalists. This is number 2. % of residents who have engaged with the city department in the past year who were satisfied with the overall quality of service provided. Again, our community engagement working group works across Team Lawrence to identify methods of improving customer service. What we call community care is a philosophy. And we're beginning to work through a process improvement project that will improve our community care, really, and improve our community service. I think that's an increasing priority, not only for our community. We're intimate enough. We have less than 100,000 people who live within the city of Lawrence, right? And so we have the opportunity to really build bridges and build trust and rapport with people who feel like, maybe one day they want to engage with our app, our City of Lawrence Services app, also known as C-Click-Fix. They want to let us know there's a pothole, on 6th Street. But there's also an opportunity for us to do some broader engagement where we respond with respect to emails, where we answer people's questions in a timely manner. And so we're working on a process improvement plan to do that work. And then finally, 1.3% of residents who are satisfied or very satisfied with the level of public involvement in local decision-making. That is what I call the core of IAP2. We're going to walk through I'm going to go here now, are the approaches that IEP2 typically encourages you to explore and identify the best approach for each project. It works in a spectrum. So you can start with inform, which is really the most straightforward method of just informing people on a process or on a project's like movement forward. And it goes all the way to empower, where you can co-create solutions with people. And we have projects all across the spectrum. So there's all different types of ways that we engage with community members, and that's by design. So let's go back to what we're building. This is where we're going. I've been here for a year, and so I've had the opportunity to do some assessment, to really listen to people, explore with me, the gaps that they see in this program and how we can scale it, how we can make it more effective, how we can make it more easy and equitable for people to gather around co-creating solutions with us. And I think we're going to focus on 4 key things. 1, accessibility of information. Accessibility should be something that is extremely easy, and there should be a low threshold, a low barrier to getting accurate information. And that's important. You've heard that time and time again in city commission meetings. I share that concern, and I think that's something, we're going to focus on in the next 365 days. We want to get broader audiences in our community invested in the process earlier. We've noticed, and we've been tracking on kind of the anecdotal data where people say, I didn't know this conversation was happening. I'm late to the conversation. What we want to do is increase our touch points. So we literally bring information and an invitation to them, as opposed to waiting for them to come across a social media post, see something on our website, read something in the LJ world. Education on the projects early and often. This really means that we really want to go where the community is gathered. An opportunity that I'd like to see us pursue, and that we've been talking about in the community engagement working group, is looking for experiences that might not be housed by the city, but that are housed by external partners with the city, or people that are hosting events here in our community. Those folks are invested in our community being successful, and they've invested in our community by housing things here. So it's important for us to make ourselves available and maybe do some community engagement in those experiences. Again, one of the benefits of being in a more intimate community is we have the opportunity and privilege to do that. We can go to where people are, and we can scale the work a little bit easier than if we were in a bigger community, frankly. And then finally, we want to co-create community solutions rather than just identifying the problem. That is a pretty tall order, and it takes years to build that kind of trust. But I think it's important for you to see movement in this area. And we're going to talk about a project where in a few minutes, where we've kind of worked to create more opportunities for people to provide us with their ideal solutions to an issue. Here's some strategies at work. I'll go through this briefly. I just wanted you to see the variety in strategies that we're using here at the city. So beyond in-person engagement projects would look like community meetings, town halls, focus groups, interviews. We don't do just we don't just do things with large groups of people gathered in a room. We do those experiences where you might passively put a Post-it note up or co-create with a group of your neighbors. We have those experiences, but we also pay attention to the data that we collect in focus groups and interviews, one-on-one conversations, meetings in someone's business. We consider all of that to be community engagement. Online engagement projects involve digital surveys, the city services app where we gather data on what people care about, what they're frustrated by, and then finally sentiment measurement. Those are strategies that we think are really critical to getting hardcore data around what we share with you. If you have a question about, the community engagement strategies around, for example, the Pinckney neighborhood, we should be able to provide you with hard data where you can explore that with us. Community engagement projects look like the ETC survey, mailed surveys. We call that the community satisfaction survey. We always want to have materials with a feedback instrument. So where you might before have seen just here's an update, we're going to, and we are working towards including more QR codes, more direct email addresses that go to a variety of people who can respond to a question. Balancing Act is another example of a community engagement project that went directly to folks. Let's talk about the results of the Balancing Act. So you've heard about a little bit from that, of the results from Allie. And a few of you had the opportunity to attend some of our in-person Balancing Act experiences. But we worked to consult with the community on the 2025 budget. We hosted 2 in-person community meetings. You'll see the dates there. And we collected more than 500 online responses via the Balancing Act. We're in conversations about those contributions almost daily. I know there are people in the finance team and on the budget team that are definitely in conversations about those results daily. But I wanted you to see that this is an opportunity for us to really ask people what their priorities are and what they believe the community's priorities should be. And that feedback is reviewed by our team. We learn from that feedback. We learn from the feedback they provide to us about the tool. So it's not just about the questions. It's about how they feel like they've been able to engage in the process. And so we've gathered some really great learning about how we could proceed in the future to involve more people. The Winter Emergency Shelter website is another great example of, we noticed a call for action online on social media. We do measure for sentiment and trust online, and we noticed that there were a number of community members who had questions, and in response to those questions, we put up a website. Those are the kind of straightforward things that people might not consider community engagement, but they really do impact, I think, people's trust and ability to come on to a city property, a website or a social media post, and see how they can help or can receive assistance. So you'll see kind of the areas that we attempted to address on that website, and I'm really proud to say that our team put this up in less than 24 hours after we noticed that there was concern from the community about where to find safe shelter or where to provide assistance or who was providing assistance and where. Another great example of a more specific project is our neighborhood engagement work in support of the village. So community engagement for the village was extensive, and there's a reason for that. That conversation took place over a long period of time, and we were offered the opportunity to work with a neighborhood stakeholder group of 13 people. It included a cross-section of folks who were representing the neighborhood association for Pinckney, alongside business owners who were in the community, people who were homeowners, renters, just a nice cross-section of folks who all said they wanted to be engaged with us over a period of time. We held 6 meetings that started in September 2023, with the most recent being on July 15th. And we're now going to move to a quarterly meeting cadence. I attended approximately half of those meetings. It supported all of those meetings. And the facilitator of those meetings worked with a number of people in not only Homeless Solutions, but through LCS to really build understanding and answer questions in an accurate manner, in a way that was as rapid as we could make it, to the very valid questions that those community members had about that project. Because of this engagement project, there were a number of really nice outcomes that came from that. One, I think they had the opportunity to talk to people who deliver services to those who are experiencing homelessness. And they had the opportunity to really build what I call a sense of empathy around the outcomes of the process. They were also able to hold us accountable to things that they needed or expected in order to feel safe or comfortable with the process moving forward. And so I'm really proud of the work that my team did on behalf of the community and in service to that conversation. You'll notice that all meetings were transcribed and summarized. There's a reason why we did that. I think when you're in a community engagement experience, if you've noticed, there's often outcomes that you can see visibly on the wall. And basically what that communicates is we're listening. We're listening. We're taking note of what you have to offer us. We care about your insights. That's a core best practice of IEP2. And I think it's something that we've seen is extremely productive, especially when you can leverage those notes to follow up within 48 hours and say, here's what we heard from you. Are there any questions that have bubbled up over the last 48 hours? We want to make sure to get those answered within the next 3 days. That's the cadence that we built with the Pinckney Neighbor stakeholder group. So it's important to note that that's an evolving process and a process where we learned a lot. We learned a lot from them and from the process. This is just a quote from CC Quarter, who I believe addressed the City Commission at the inception of this project and has since become someone who we speak with quite often about her needs. She owns and operates now 2 locations of the Children's Learning Center, which is directly across from the village. Our current projects are housed on our community engagement section of our website. You can see not only projects that are currently happening, but also projects that have moved into the archival phase. But you'll be able to see a lot of notes, data, process summaries, and feedback housed in those little tiles. And we think that's important so people can continue to see movement around areas of interest for them. What's next is the Achieve It dashboard. That's going to help us monitor and communicate to the community movement around the strategic plan. Every KPI is housed within the Achieve It dashboard. You'll learn more about that in the next couple of days. But I did want to highlight that as kind of an opportunity for you for any community member to monitor movement around the strategic plan in general. That, again, I think is a core part of community engagement, is monitoring and communicating progress in core areas. And with that, I'm open to your questions.
Hey, Coy, a couple questions. Lead in with a statement. I think, we think a lot, or I think a lot about, processes involving the city commission.
Right.
But obviously, most of the work done by our 800 employees are not, at the commission level. So you talked about 50 people being trained in IAP.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see this trickling down to, trickling down might be the wrong word, but, when, I don't know, someone's working on the street and
Mm-hmm.
someone comes up to them and say, hey, what are you doing on my street? What kind of, why are you replacing that gutter? That sort of thing. Is it that kind of level?
Yes, it can be. I'll use MSO as an example. So every department across the city has the opportunity to use the core communications and community relations team as kind of consultants. And so we've sat with a variety of project leads, engineers, a variety of people who don't necessarily know the nature of community engagement, don't know the best practices necessarily. And we've had the opportunity to guide them and to say, here are some options to better educate community members. Here are some ways that we can measure progress. Here are some people that you need to speak with. I mean, sometimes it's that granular. Give this person a call. They reached out to us, or here's somebody who has a lot of opinions about this particular project. You might want to reach out to them. So if you're talking about the trickle down or kind of like how granular it gets or how deeply embedded it is in the organization, I will also say that the majority of folks who do this kind of work are identified pretty early on in their professional development process, I think. And there are people that have a real acumen for this work and a real interest in learning more about this work. Those people are brought onto the community engagement working group. There's a low threshold for joining that group, and that's a way to learn more about what your peers are doing. So that's one way that we scale across the organization and make sure that people are continually getting trained, no matter how long they've been with the city of Lawrence. You know, I think I was trained after maybe 5 weeks, and I was trained with 4 other members of the City of Lawrence team. So, yeah.
Different subject, but I know there's some work on your work plan about, you know, the web page and updating the web page and how that's going. So can you give us any update on
Sure.
that?
Yeah, I'll give you a broader update after we begin, but our discussions right now are really about assessing what our website is and where are the gaps. And we're exploring what a relationship with a vendor would look like. We're moving into kind of the exploration phase and the assessment phase. One of the things that we need to do and that we're working on currently is indexing the entire site. What the index does, it essentially creates a roadmap for every single page, what pages are dead, what pages are no longer accurate, who no longer, you know, what pages are just sitting out there that haven't been visited. We can track all of that data. And so that's a critical part of the assessment phase. I will tell you, you know, updating the website is an ongoing process, but it begins with a selection of a strategy, an approach, and a vendor. And so I'm looking forward to updating you on that. If I can be casual for a brief minute, one of the things I've identified is that our website was built on a network that is no longer search term optimized. So essentially, we have a roadmap around our website that it's very difficult for search engines to search through and look at and identify where people want to go. And so we need to really look at the structure and navigation of our website to make sure that when people come to our site to look for the top 5 reasons they would visit the City of Lawrence website, that even if they search through a search engine, it drives them to the accurate information and to the appropriate page immediately. That's something that we talk about a lot and that we're working on a strategy to address that. I think that's a key part of any site's functionality. It really is that specific. We're talking about making a very broadly built site more functional and more efficient.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have questions?
No, appreciate that update. It's not, I'm not a question. I'll wait till we're going to come back for comments.
Sure.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Okay.
Okay. Bart, you good? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. A public comment on this item? Okay, doesn't look to be any online.
Stephen Watts.
Hi, excuse me. Thank you. You know, I appreciate having the communications department come up here and pat each other on the back, something fierce. I'd like to know, what do best practices say about a bogus town website that is fraught with error and an obscene resistance to getting it right? I have tried to interface with this group of people and it's nigh unto impossible, although there has been some movement and there was a promise about a correct website by October of 2024 after first being advised of October 2026. My question is, what is this jibber jabber about finding a vendor to create a new website and reinvent the wheel, or a vendor for the communications department to have as a platform internet-wise? It's a critical question. Are these people incapable, with all of the money that they are paid, to create a viable website? Not something that has to be world-class and full of frills, but something that actually works. Thank you.
Any others?
That's all the comments.
Thank you, Sherry. Back to the commission.
Yeah, I would just like to add, Corey, I really do appreciate actually seeing a plan laid out for community engagement. I really do appreciate that very much because historically the mantra was we need better public engagement. We need better community engagement, but it's nice to see this start to be laid out and see some movement on it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree.
Corey, just a couple of things. One, thank you for the presentation. I know we've talked about this several times in different iterations offline, so I do appreciate having the commitment team come and present to the commission as a whole. I wanted to share just a couple of things. One, on the indexing of the website. I think that'll be good once you kind of know what that looks like, what the timeline's going to be. I know I've done similar working for KDHE, and our timeline was a complete year. We had to index and map out, and we had to map out over 5,000 pages. Again, looking for those dead spots. And so it is one of those things where you're not necessarily fixing the plane while flying it. You're trying to build the plane over here while also making sure you're fixing this plane. And so I think just letting us know once we get an idea of what that's going to look like, because it flashes me back to when I was on HRC, and that was one of the questions that came up when I was a member of HRC is, when are we going to have updates to the website? And again, it has to do with platform and modernization. It's just a nature of the process. So I do appreciate that. There was one particular in 1.3 KPI, just the percent of residents who are satisfied or very satisfied with the level of public involvement in local decision-making. I think that'll be something for your team to focus on. I know in several core community conversations that we've had, I think there's a little bit of there's a disconnect with the community. I know recently with the NAACP and their program with their presentation with the DOJ, a lot of folks were talking about, community involvement in decision-making and not understanding or realizing that there is a pathway to that. So there's a little bit of education, but also there may be an opportunity for more engagement on that. So just I can see where 1.3 could potentially be a point of doing a little bit more in-depth engagement with community partners, activist organizations, to really suss that, scope that out, not suss it out, scope it out a bit. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think just to follow through, I caught kind of the same question about the vendor. So currently, you mentioned that our website's not indexed. You don't have an index of the website pages?
That's correct.
Okay. And so the vendor you would charge with for creating the website or managing the website?
As it stands right now, we'd need to assess what our needs are so we could develop a scope of work with the vendor. But
how would you because it is something that it'd be nice to be able to manage internally, especially when it's moving all the time. There's tons of platforms you can use to make it, easy to do.
One of the conversations we're having, that's an excellent question. One of the conversations we're having with potential vendors is the fact that right now we're operating off of a WordPress site, which allows us open access to making changes quickly. We don't have to file it through a ticketing system. So if you want to talk specifics about how to monitor and manage a website, I definitely have preferences, and those preferences are rooted in expediency and accuracy. There are a number of vendors who operate in this space. They meet different needs for different clients. And I think part of the assessment is identifying what our needs and priorities are. I do appreciate people's need and expectation for an accurate website. I share that expectation, and I assume that as a mandate. That's it. That's critical. But that also, the bar is on the floor, right? That's a pretty low bar of functionality. And so what we want to do is work with any vendor that we select to address a number of needs that we have identified through the assessment process.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. I would only add that I do agree that I get used to things like Google, trying to get me to the right page rather than going to the website and using the search bar. And it does not work well without a website. You cannot get to a page you want without going to the website and then using the search feature. And that could be improved. Yes, agreed.
Well, thank you very much. Any other comments, questions? guess we'll let you go. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to, what's that?
Take a break.
Oh, sure. How about how long 5 minutes? Good.
10.
10-minute
10 minutes.
break. So it's 7:58. We'll reconvene at 8:08. Okay, we're back after our 10-minute recess. The next item on the agenda are commission items, and that is specifically to consider approving our board members as listed. Last time we addressed this issue, we picked the name of the board and then asked if there were any additions or subtractions or approvals. I'm not sure how you want to go about it, but I thought we'd just do it the same way. Any thoughts?
Sound good to me.
Okay.
Art said okay.
Okay. All right. So the purpose here is to try to firm up our last board member seats in the process. The first one on the list is the Affordable Housing Advisory Board. Looks like there's 4 nominees and only 2 spots. I had asked for Mark Bueller to be added last week. I didn't do it correctly, so it was added yesterday or today. So I'm just curious if I noticed 2 more names were added in the last few days. So we need to pick 2 out of the 4.
Vice Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I do notice that Mark Bueller looks like he got more than one nomination. That's
Okay.
what the asterisk is for. Am I correct?
I think that's correct. Yes. So would that be a preference then, since it's a more than one nomination?
I would think so.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So should we put, since there's 2 selected, more than one, I should say, should we ask for Mark to be added? And then we have to pare it down to 2 total.
I mean, I think a matter of someone being nominated by more than one commissioner doesn't necessarily mean that they're equally deserving to be on a board. I think one, if there's anyone here, if any of the nominees are here and they would like to speak, I think we should give them time to speak. Since I know I'm familiar with some of these folks, so they may have something to share.
Oh, so
Sway my vote. So
okay, so you are proposing that we ask that the members who were proposed speak to the commission?
I mean, if there's a nominee here that wants to speak, they can.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have to, but I mean,
Well, I guess I wasn't here last week.
We didn't.
That'd be a surprise that, I mean,
Because we didn't ask.
someone didn't know they were supposed to be here to speak and then you
Yeah.
let somebody speak. I think
Yeah,
later we need to talk about how this process works, but for the moment, I think we need to, stick to the process we used last week. But I think we need to talk about, in the future, we'll talk about how the process works, but.
Okay, so I've only nominated one person to any of the boards. That's Mark Bueller. He's my only single nomination of all the boards so far. So I would like to see at least one item or member appointed on my behalf if possible. However, if we want to choose others, that's fine. We have 3 others to decide on. So we can either do a hand vote on each one ahead of time or pare it down to 2 and go.
I'd support Mark. I know 2 of the others. I do not know Andrew Delacour, but I looked at his resume.
Yeah, I'm fine with Mark.
Well, Mark
I'm
was
fine
on
with Mark as well.
Okay, so there's that would be 4 total agreement then on that. Amber, would you?
no.
Okay. So then let's pick, we need to move down the line to the next names then, which is we've got Andrew Gallagher, Thomas Howe, and George Elliott to choose from. I don't know who nominated these folks. If the person who chose to nominate wants them to speak up or excuse me, speak on their behalf, that'd be great. But at this point, I'm open to suggestions on the second nomination.
I guess I would say, and again, I wasn't here last week, we talked about everyone nominating 2, 1 or 2 people to each board. I nominated 2 people who were approved last week, so I'm open to, people who nominated them and didn't have anyone else nominated, like you said with Mark, I'm open to hear that and,
Yeah, so,
So I think as we move forward with this process, because again, it is a new process. That in our initial conversations, we talked about everyone having two names and having their two names presented and submitted to Sherry, to the clerk's office, no later than the deadline that we agreed upon. And so at some point where we're in this process, and I think because this is an example of why we need hard deadlines, is it that spot remains open if a commissioner does not submit a name for a board, or if after one pass, they don't submit a name, they are, they don't have, at that point, they're relinquished to that. So anyone else can.
I
I
agree.
think that's the conversation we need to have. I nominated Andrew Gallagher and George Elliott. After I reviewed, I did submit names before in the first round. When it came back and we voted on the last section and saw that we still have vacancies, I went back and reviewed my applications. From those reviews, I then submitted additional names. Now, not knowing where that fits in Sherry's scope, I just submitted those names because I didn't want us to, have this vacancy and we're waiting so long, and maybe a commissioner doesn't want to submit names. Maybe a commissioner doesn't feel comfortable submitting names for a board and commission. And I think that's something that should be articulated so that Sherry knows that, so that Sherry can then share that with other boards, with other commissioners. So we do that. And I think that's a safe way to do it. I mean, I want to say it was a little bit difficult for me to produce names for the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board because I didn't want the Sustainability Advisory Board to come back, but it did. And so I did my due diligence to look at the nominees and also to reach out to folks who I knew who expressed interest in wanting to be impactful in some way around environmental sustainability in the community and encourage them to apply to it, not just so that I can put them on the board, just so that they can be considered amongst all the commissioners of whether or not they were worthy of being put on the board. So if there is a commissioner that has not submitted a name for the AHAB, then I am not opposed to them being able to forth their nomination since they hadn't put a nomination before. And so if that's the case with you, Vice Mayor, then if your choice is Mark Bueller, then it's Mark Bueller.
thank you. And who else? So do we need to choose from the other three then as well? From obviously, you submitted George and Andrew. Thomas was on the board before, I think, previously.
Yes.
So.
And the board currently has 3 people who were on the board previous.
Okay. Well, I'm easy. So whoever wants to suggest, I trust that your recommendations are suitable here. So. Okay, well, I can just go down the line if you'd like with the names. Is that how'd you like to propose it or no? Mayor, how would you like to go?
Yeah, that would be fine with me. As Commissioner Sellers said, I submitted a couple nominations for this board, I think last week. So if anybody else has not submitted any nominations for this board, I would, kind of yield to them as well. But I also, I think Mark was one of my selections as well this week. So kind of coincided. So if there are any other commissioners that haven't, submitted a nomination for the advisory board, I guess speak now.
Okay. Everybody else has somebody on it then, it looks like, already placed. Okay. So do you want to do a voice vote on each one? And the one, I mean, I don't really know how else to purge this list without having a vote.
So by me looking at this, I think what's good, it has for us to have a good mix of whether there's folks who want to be reappointed as well as having new, fresh perspectives. As it stands last week, we approved Monty Suckup, Tyson Khan, Elizabeth O'Neill, Christina Gentry, and Mariel Fierro. With the addition of nominating Mark Bueller, that would have 4 individuals on the Housing Advisory Board that are reappointees per se. So I would say, for the sake of balance and opportunity, that we at least make the third and the seventh and final slot someone who has not served on AHAP. And I think, again, if something happens, someone may fall, someone may have a commitment, may need to slide off, may not be able to complete their full term. We still have a list of folks, of very, I believe, qualified individuals who would be able to step in and take the charge on that board or any of these boards.
Okay, so is there one in particular you want to suggest as the first pick?
I don't want to beat a dead meal and be here till 10:30, so let's just go in order and go with Mr. Gallagher, because I do believe he's a new appointee.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the Affordable Housing Advisory Board with Mark Bueller and Andrew Gallagher? Is there a motion for that?
I move that we appoint Mark Bueller and Andrew Gallagher to the 6th and 7th spots on the Affordable Housing Advisory Board.
I'd second.
Okay, motion and seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. The motion passes 4-1 with
I wasn't sure how we were
Commissioner
doing that.
Finkelstein and then.
I wasn't sure how we were doing that.
How we're doing the vote.
Yeah.
So, I mean, since we didn't have full slates last week, we took them up as a whole. And if there are any, someone can bring objections, but if they didn't, then we
That's
took
what
them up
I'm
as a whole.
Yeah.
So I guess we can do it as if, kind of like consent agenda. If you want to pull someone to discuss, we can pull it before.
We have 4 votes. Let's try again on the Community Police Review Board.
So the Community Police Review Board, we have 5 nominees and 3 open positions. Is that correct? So we are in the same position where we need to choose fewer than the number provided. If there's any suggestions on choosing the 3 or removing any names from the list for consideration, please do so.
I would ask to remove Joshua Seiden from the list.
Okay, that's 1 name. And currently we are in need of 3 total? So we need 2 more. Oh, excuse me, 1 more removed from the list.
Yeah, I nominated Douglas Miller, and here's my second appointment.
Okay, so you wouldn't be the
I
person.
would not remove him.
Yeah. How about Adam Kellogg? Who suggested him? And
I nominated Adam and
Okay.
Josh.
cool.
So my nominees for this would be Douglas, Joshua, and Adam.
Okay,
I would add that Brenda Clary was on the previous board. I don't know if we've got anybody on the board that was previously on the old board.
Amber seems to be pretty well into that. Do you know?
Yeah, I didn't
how
think
much-
so.
I'm magical, but I'm not that magical.
Yeah, I don't think there's there were other candidates that had been on the board from last week.
Okay.
So I think it would help to bring a little bit of that along with it.
Continuity?
Yeah, continuity.
Mhm.
Yep.
I would say, I'd agree. It helps to have somebody on there, but the previous board, I don't know how much
It was, yeah,
action was taken, but
right.
they do have all the training and experience on how to manage in that situation, I think.
Right.
So. Okay, so Brenda would be a request from you.
Yes.
And Douglas Miller is you mentioned that, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then, so that leaves Rick Friedman.
Mhm.
I didn't nominate him, but I think we have to choose 3. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure do you want me to remove each one or?
I would concur with Commissioner Larson in removal of Joshua Seiden. So if you needed that.
So that leaves us to 4.
So are you formally voting him?
No, I'm just saying I'm just trying to we only have 3 spaces to fill. We have
Right.
5 people. And so I need to get the number down to 3 so that we can vote. Now, if we want to change names, that's fine, but we can't vote on more than 3 possessions. So we were going to go through the board and try to appoint these people. We've got 3 seats, so we need this list pared down by 2.
I would be fine with Miller, Clary, and Friedman. Thanks.
So we have one vote for Miller, Clary.
If there's anyone I'm gonna push hard for, it'd be for Adam.
For Adam Kellogg.
Yes.
My 2 cents, it'd be Miller, Kellogg, Clary.
Miller, Kellogg, and Clary. Okay. Commissioner Finkeldine, do you have any objection to that
I
one?
mean, I think, no, I'm fine with that. I mean, Rick would be good as well as, I don't know Adam as well, but I'm okay with that, with Kellogg,
With Kellogg.
Clary and
Amber, you
Miller.
okay if I move to vote for those three at once and see how we moved?
Yeah, because you probably have a third no vote for Josh out there, but we're gonna spare the dramatics and go ahead and
Please.
lean on the positive side.
I would appreciate that tonight.
very
Thank you very
welcome,
much.
Mayor.
Okay. Okay, so Mayor, why don't you propose that?
Yes, I move that we appoint Douglas Miller, Adam Kellogg, and Brenda Clary to the Community Police Review Board. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's,
Hold on.
Sorry?
Question.
Sure.
I can do that. Parliamentary. Are we saying in that order as far as positions or terms?
I didn't get down to the brass tacks. I should,
Yeah.
because there is one term that's 2 years.
Yeah.
But just so we can, I had them in a different order than the mayor said based on as they came in, it's just how we did
Okay,
it
so
last
you're doing it
week.
as they come in.
But just keep in mind that the terms are not that different because anyone serving a 1-year term is eligible for 2 additional terms.
Okay,
So, I mean, we can put them in whatever position you want, but
okay.
the 3-year terms and 2-year terms are eligible for 2 terms, but the 1-year term, because it's not over a year per the policy, they can get 2 additional.
We can still get
terms.
2 additional. Okay,
So they're all fairly even terms of what they're capable for being reappointed
all
for.
right.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second for those three. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 5-0 on the Community Police Review Board members of Miller, Kellogg, and Clary. Okay, the next is the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 total, I think that's right. And there's 5 proposed. 2 that seem to be, or 1 that has more than 1 commissioner recommendation. So how would you like to proceed on this? Anybody have any last minute additions that maybe less enthusiastic, or somebody who really wants to be on? We need to make sure they're on there. Is there any kind of feedback on that?
Now, last week we appointed Muma, Fatimi, and Reimer. I do believe Muma and Fatimi were previous ones, correct?
Correct.
I nominated Juan and Chloe. For what it's worth. We'll do-
Okay. So 1, 2, 3. So we only need 1 removed. I don't know who nominated the others, but if you can kind of give us any insight if we think there's new additions here that might be better than others, just please chime in, because I don't really know many of these people.
I don't have any issue with a specific one.
Okay.
Whatever group we pick.
Mayor, do you have any personal opinions on, since we have 1 extra one here, how to resolve that?
I don't. I would note that I also nominated Juan as well. He was one of mine. So
1 is going to be number 1. Is this in this case? And it's just, again, because there's 2, and then so I know I think just was Chloe on there before? Oh no.
No, Chloe is new.
Okay. Her name sounds familiar. I couldn't remember why. So okay.
For what it's worth, I think we nominated 2 men and 1 woman last time. And,
So should we go?
but I was just looking who we nominated last time.
Oh,
We nominated 3, so we have 4 left.
right.
I looked at all their applications. I thought,
Yeah, I
I
didn't-
did not have a problem with any
No, me
of
neither,
them,
but
No,
but I don't know who.
I don't know them well, so I couldn't.
that makes it harder almost.
I know.
yeah. I did see Joshua Rowney and David Johnson still had some pretty good expertise, as well as, the interest from Brian and Chafin as well. So, I mean, you're right. They would all be good additions.
Okay, well, since none of them are my request, I don't want to step in anybody's toes, so
No.
I'll call on this.
Okay, so so again, to make sure every commissioner has a nominee that's on the board. Who were the three that were approved last week? Whose were those picks? Because that's at least,
I had 2 of them last week, so.
okay, so you're covered.
I had one of them last week.
Okay. That's 3.
No,
Did any of yours get on there
nope,
last week?
I didn't,
Nope.
I didn't submit any. I didn't have any requested, so
Commissioner
this
Larson.
is
Let me look here.
up to you guys.
So I see, there it is. Who 2 of mine got on last time?
2 of yours are on there. So we got Commissioner
They did not-
covered, you covered. Mayor's got 1.
So you did 3 this last
I
time?
did 2.
Okay, so you want Juan, we're gonna do him for sure.
We'll do 1.
I think
and that
everyone is-
takes care of the mayor
Right,
and me.
and
so-
then I would just go down the line. I don't know Sean. But I think that would be, is Sean a male or female, by the way?
Male. Male, I believe.
Male, okay. All right, so they're all males.
We wouldn't
No,
know
one,
unless they
Chloe's.
qualified on there.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Mayor, you mentioned Joshua and David in particular.
Yeah.
And they both do have expertise, and I was impressed with those. So I guess I'd probably go with Juan, Chloe, Joshua, and David. But it's not a strong feeling if anyone has one.
I'm good with that.
Let's do it.
I'm
Okay.
good with that as well.
Okay, so you want to make that motion for Juan?
I
Chloe,
move for
Joshua?
Juan, Chloe, Joshua, and David.
That's a motion? Second?
Second.
Okay,
Kind of a-
all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Okay, these ones are a little easier. We have the Aviation Advisory Board, appoint William Enanet. Is that how you say that name? Enamet. And appoint Sarah Thompson. So there's a position 5 is a 2-year term, position 6 is a 1-year term. Any questions or issues over these appointments?
Oh.
Reappointing them? Is there a motion to do so?
Move to appoint William and Sarah.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, the motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Appointing William and Sarah. Okay, next is the Connected City Advisory Board. There's 2 separate positions. One's a 2-year term, one's a 1-year term. Is there any requests or issues with the appointments?
I think Ryan and Michael are both the appointees.
Mhm.
They are.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, is there a motion to approve them?
Move to approve, Ryan. Move to approve the appointees to the Connected City Advisory Board as presented.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 No opposed. Motion passes 5-0. Did say aye under my breath. So the next is the Historic Resources Commission, position 6 and 7, both 1-year terms. Any issues with these appointments or questions or concerns?
Nope.
Is there a motion to approve them?
Move to approve the appointees for the Historic Resources Commission as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes 5-0 for Historic Resources Commission, appointment of Greg Shanklin and Phil Cunningham. The next is Human Relations Commission. And that is 1-year position of Matthew Hall. Any questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion to approve, Matthew?
Are we just going with these? Oh.
Yeah, you're doing good.
Move. Move to approve the appointee of the Human Relations Commission as presented.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. The next appointments are the Lawrence Cultural Arts Commission. There's 3, 4, 5, and 6. Position 3 is a 3-year term. Position 4 is a 2-year term. Position 5 is a 2-year term, and position 6 is a 1-year term. We have Marlo Engel for the 3-year term, Alicia Kelly for a 2-year term, Kelly Quaranta for a 2-year term, and Matthew Goss for a 1-year term. Any objections or questions about these appointments?
Nope.
Okay.
Hello.
Is there a motion to approve them?
Motion to approve the appointees to the Lawrence Cultural Arts Commission as presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Next is the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. We have 2 positions. One's a 2-year term for Lee Ice. The second is a 1-year term to appoint Lisa Hallberg. Any questions or comments or additions? Okay, is there a motion to approve them?
Move to approve the appointees of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board as presented.
Second?
Second.
Motion seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? No, passes 5-0. And finally, we have the LMH Health Board of Trustees, position 3 to appoint Sharon Spratt to a term expiring September 30th, 2027.
Just real quick, I think Sharon would be great on the board. I would note that Dr. Quick, who is the vice chair of the board, set to be chair next year, is up for reappointment, possible reappointment. She applied today and I pushed that nomination ahead. I think it'd be good to keep her on to serve as chair. Just throw that out there in case there's other nominations being thought of going forward, but I'm certainly supportive of Sharon.
Got it. Sure thing. Anybody have any other questions or comments on this?
No, Sharon's a great pick.
That was on the vacancy, Sherry.
There are 2, but
2.
no one provided a nomination for the
So
other.
the chair is up for?
Yeah.
She's the vice chair. She would
The vice,
She would
okay.
be in line for chair. The other appointment decided not to reapply, so that's, I think Sharon got on there.
That's right, yeah.
I was just trying to figure out like, how do we have a chair?
Yeah, vice chair who's up
Vice.
for reappointment.
So I believe Sharon Spratt would be a great.
Well, sure, yeah.
I know her.
I agree. I second that motion, but I can't. So, so is there a motion to approve Sharon Spratt?
I move to approve Sharon Spratt.
Okay,
The LMH,
second.
Health Board
Second.
of Trustees.
Thank you. Okay, motion is to approve Sharon Spratt. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And I believe that is the end of our agenda item for the appointments to the boards.
So Sherry,
Yes.
for those vacancies that are still open, how would you like for us to? And I think for most of us, we probably exhausted all. But I know we received a couple of more nominations for cultural arts. And I want to say I think that was it as well. Cultural arts and Parks and Rec is
So we'll-
aviation advisory.
Yeah, I don't know I'd have to look to see if everyone that's applied has been appointed. I don't think that's the case, but we'll update those appointments tomorrow and then your list, they'll be removed because they were appointed. Then we'll have a sense of how many applications. We can also do a push for those.
Okay.
Work with communications to kind of do another push for the boards that are open and need spots. But we have a quorum for all of them, so we can move forward.
Yeah, moving forward.
And it's up to all of you how you want to move forward with the nominations. Obviously, we're through the bulk of those, and every week you'll get the vacancy report.
Right.
And see what upcoming positions are open. And I think generally you all agreed that we wouldn't put nominations on until they're within 60 days of expiration, but you can send those, that way you can be looking forward and be communicating to folks about what's coming up over the next 6 months to a year. But as you send those in, we'll put them on there and you can have a conversation like this, or we can We can do it however you all would like.
Gotcha.
I think it's worth a discussion. I guess, I mean, we had to get through the bulk of these. There's a bunch of them, and then I think this process was the process that worked is messy, but it got us there.
Yeah.
But I think I would support going forward as we're doing one at a time or two at a time. We go back, to to a consent agenda, possibility. But I'm just asking the question.
Mhm. Okay, so get all your questions answered there. I think we should move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The more substantial item of these two reports is the update on addressing the city's current fiscal year budget. A lot of discussion is obviously put into the 2025 budget, which takes a lot of work. Just as challenging has been a partial year closing the same gap that we've identified as a challenge in 2025 that's confronting us this year in the sales tax, falling short of estimates. So our team, led by Allie Porter, has been working on those different scenarios. They're focusing in three areas. One is existing operations, largely what things haven't been spent, what vacancies do we have, what are some things that we can reduce now and minimize impact on services. The second area is what fund transfers can we look at? So there are some, as Allie can go through in detail, there are some funds where we're spending money out of general fund, but they qualify for being spent out of these special or proprietary funds. And so those are options for us. The third area is drawing down reserves. Now, we identify this as something that will be a challenge for the next year's budget. In the 2025 budget, we've already identified that $2 million that is a challenge for us to address. But those are the three primary ways that we put together a plan. This is working with all the different departments in the general fund, primarily in the general fund, because that's where our challenge is. But I wanted to make you and the community aware of this, to go through this general plan of what we intend. There's some things that we did as kind of guardrails. It's kind of silly to not fill or keep vacant positions that would trigger overtime. So we pay time and a half instead of single time. So there's some of those sorts of rules that we put into play to help guide the construction of this interim measure. So many of these things are one-time things. This fund transfers certainly are one-time things. Some of the reductions that we're proposing, we can get by for a year, but not in all cases can we sustain those. But we can certainly get through until we adopt a budget in 25, which renews our plan in a more limited plan, obviously, but that discussion will be for tomorrow night and after. So we're happy to answer any questions. We published this so that the community would have an idea of it. You would have an idea of it. The fund transfers will require action next budget or next week. We plan to put those transfers before you on consent unless there's any reason to do another discussion. But we wanted to kind of have that discussion and make you aware tonight.
Okay.
Anything to?
Oh, go ahead.
Craig stole all my thunder. So yes, happy to answer any questions.
I know one of the things we've done, and you mentioned it briefly there, and I'll just use this as an antidote, but I mean, I always look in the paper at how many openings we have.
Mm-hmm.
And we recently went from like 15 openings to like 5 in the last several weeks. As I understand, you've put some hiring restrictions depending on open positions. And I guess if that's the case, is there some, by leaving some positions vacant, I know we have quite a few vacant positions. How does that play into this reduction plan?
We're counting on those vacancies. In not all cases, I'm personally approving anybody posting those jobs. That was starting about a month ago. So everybody's got to really make the case that we're going to spend more if we don't fill this. In some cases, like police and fire, those are such long hiring thresholds that if it's vacant, it's going to still be vacant. If it happens today, it's going to still be vacant. But there are other ones where we could be filling those. I will give you two examples that you're all kind of aware of. In our office, Britt Krumkano has announced her retirement, and we wish her well. She's given us plenty of time, but I will not be recruiting for that position for a while, so that we probably would fill that at the earliest into the new fiscal year. So that's a salary savings of about 3 months of an executive team staff member. Fortunately for him, unfortunately for us, our analyst, our economic development analyst in that department, so the other half of that entire department got another job. We are not recruiting for that position. So that's another example of it. Now, is economic development still happening? Yes, I can assure you it is, but that's what I will have to take over. And so everybody who's still here will still try to keep the work going, but we have to level with people that we can't get the same work done with fewer people. But those are the kinds of decisions that we really have been making for a while. I just haven't been talking to you about them, and we've been trying to manage and look at our revenues too. I mean, things can change for the positive, but hope is not a business plan. So we have been working to try and manage the budget through those processes, and, shouldering the work with fewer people.
I guess that was kind of my point. Some of that's baked into, they don't necessarily, those examples don't show up on this, but that doesn't mean there's other ways we're trying to.
Right. I asked for a 2-pager so that, it wouldn't be too cumbersome. And also, the effort to put together these plans is significant. We really did 2 budgets this year in this process.
You did. Anyway, thank you. I think if anybody else, Mayor, do you have any questions still around? You may have left. Okay. Good. Thank you. So, I'll take public comment on this before we do review the calendar. Is that okay?
On this?
Yeah.
And I guess I would also ask, make sure that these transfers that we're showing you are coming on your consent agenda. So if there's any concern or discussion about that, we would want to have that now.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we move forward, just to be clear, is this just on the city manager's report as a whole, or are you taking public comment on each of these items under city manager's?
I'm doing city manager report.
Okay.
Public comment right now.
Okay. Thank you. I got an idea how you can save some money on that budget there. You can stop discriminating, retaliating, and violating my First Amendment rights when I come in here and speak. Just like I did last week, or just like you did last week when I was speaking in here. It's going to cost you guys it could cost you guys close to $1 million just in attorney's fees. Just attorney's fees, close to $1 million. Mind you, that's just attorney's fees. Olathe School District was sued by Jennifer Gilmore. She won her case, and that district had to pay north of $750,000. And Jennifer Gilmore and I have the same attorney.
Any other comments on? Go ahead, Mike.
Mark, that is the one time that Justin didn't use his whole 3 minutes. As I said earlier, your city manager claims that he's taken a lot of actions to control this budget stuff and control the fact that we're running into deficit, but we still have people bringing in projects that are exceeding budget. I think that's a directive that the city manager can be given by this body to not bring another project in here that exceeds the budget in the CIP for that. And I think you guys need to be given more options that are below the budget, instead of just having the one option that meets the budget. And then we got these 2 others that are above, way above. I think we need to bring in some bids for really staying within budget, meeting the project goals, bring in bids that actually meet the requirements that have been set forth already. This idea that you can just keep spending. Yeah, I think he realizes that it's not going to work, but we're not doing enough to curb it. A little bit of in-house stuff for a couple months, 2 or 3 months of executive level salary doesn't come close to the shortfall that we're talking about. And it's going to require some different thinking. Give you another 2 minutes there.
Thanks, Michael. Any other public comment in the room on this one?
Hi, this is Chris Flowers. I just want to throw out an idea how we could make some money is some places before have done like calendars where they put like their firemen or their policemen and they do like they get them kind of half naked and they sell calendars. Um, you could do that with some city staff. I've seen decent looking city staff, and you maybe do one with women, one with guys, market it to the public. I mean, you put them in bikinis or Speedos. I think you're gonna sell some calendars. Also, another idea I've mentioned before is like having some kind of raffle or something where you get to name like a new street. I think people would pay money to try to name something, and like you have streets that you're constantly making. Why not? Like how do you name a street? Like give the public a chance to win the rights to name a street. Maybe just throwing that out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Hi, David Baston. I remember it's a month or two ago that the Journal World wrote an article about the fund balances. And I just briefly came to my mind. I looked up just a few little things on it. I know the city does have a policy on the fund balances. Yeah, that they're not supposed to exceed 90 days operating expenditures. And I know they had said that the second part of the fund balance I'm sorry, is not supposed to fall below 60 days of operating expenditures. The general and basically they went on to state that there were 10 of these that they identified that were way over the 60 days that was recommended, which totaled $47 million in excess. So I don't know if any details about those, but if that's excess, then I don't see why we can't come up with a shortfall out of those excess above board policies. So, well, thank you much.
Thanks, Dave. Anybody else? Anybody online?
Stephen Watts.
Hi, thank you. You know, I appreciate the opportunity to have a city manager's report. And it would be nice if the city manager report could include meat and potatoes. I mean, some actual information in there. Critical stuff. It's like, why is everything so secret, Mr. Owens? Why is the budget secret? I requested a single line item from the fire, a line item budget from the fire department just for starters, and your office refused to provide it, hiding behind a KSA. You could have sent something, but it's nothing. All the public knows are the huge amounts of money, Craig. If you're going to keep the information secret, then you need to provide a report during the city manager report time that includes the secrets, please. I guess they wouldn't be a secret then if you say it. Please don't suggest that the public can participate in this if you don't give us the numbers to work with. Why is it secret? If the fire department line item budget is secret and hides behind a KSA, what other budgets are similar? It was the point I was trying to make in terms of not getting the report. I didn't think you'd send it, so I asked for it. Please
These city manager reports are important for the public to understand what is going on in the bowels of the city manager's office, which has turned the town into a market-based economy, evidently. Okay, well, the market dictates. Please get that information out and quit making it secret. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Julie Jones.
I want to piggyback off what Stephen was saying. There is a lot of us discussing and trying to figure out what's going on. I understand the budget is very complicated. As I go line by line through the budget, I see the items in the city that Mr. Owens had spoke about being in bad shape and needing repairs. We are not asking for, we don't feel like the moon, the stars, and the sun. We would just want to know why something needs to be repaired and who did we contract with it, and could it be detained? Could it be put off for a year or two? When we get those budgets that says give us your input, we feel like that's a dog and pony show telling us there's your input. But then all of a sudden the budget comes out, and like he said, there's certain items that we can't even look at the line by line item on. We have no idea. I've kind of changed my mind about the shelter and what's going on out there. And I'm concerned about some of the things that I'm hearing from people living there. I understand there's another bed bug outbreak at the Lawrence Community Shelter, but I don't see anything posted about that. I just want to know what's going on. We would just like to know more in the city. If you want us to be more on board with you guys, we'd like to know what's going on. Otherwise, the anger and the frustration is going to continue, and there's going to be more and more people speaking out longer and louder. Thank you.
That's all the public comment.
All right. Thank you, Sherry. Can we review future agenda items? Is there anything to talk about here?
Calendar.
I did want to ask Craig one question on your general fund budget for 2024. My understanding is that you're going to be coming out when you present this to us, you're going to show the difference, the changes in the fund balances that occur based on all these movement of dollars. Is that right?
That's what was summarized in the report tonight. And it will show the same information, but you will be taking action to move, formal action to move those. You see those in quarterly budget adjustments. But since we just had one, we'd like to get that done independently as a single action. But this is what we would normally do quarterly.
Correct. Will we see updated fund balances?
Yes, we'll show those.
That's what I was, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have anything to question on the calendar? If not, we'll move on to I guess I guess I missed the commission calendar.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. You're right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, good.
You're thinking commission items.
Yes, got it. They're very similar. Okay, any issues on the calendar? It's like
No.
okay. Very good. So I guess we'll move on to open public comments. We'll terminate our television service at this point.